Yep. That's right.
All right. All right, so let's go ahead and get this started. All right, so the movie that started all Iron Man. What are your initial? Okay, so like I think we should do maybe for each movie we say like things that come to mind that we liked about it, things we didn't like, and then we'll put it at a spot.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
I think
cool.
I think that's pretty fair because I think something that the easiest thing for me to quantify it in terms of like deciding between two is like, is it in the top half of my MCU or is it in the bottom half of my
Yeah.
MCU list? That's like the easiest initial filter for me.
Right.
And so I mean Iron Man is definitely on the top half. Like it's
Oh,
definitely not
absolutely.
right.
Oh,
So
it's
just
gonna
in
be
terms of
high.
like yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Um Man, okay, I don't know. Yeah, I'll go first. I mean,
Okay.
it's the classic. It's
Yeah.
it's the one that started all off. I think this one was the first one that kind of got the ball rolling with casting. Where like I
Mm-hmm.
think all of the casting is like pretty phenomenal. It kind of just started the formula of a Marvel movie, so it did kind of live outside of some of the cookie cutter stuff that we get like
Yeah.
further down the list. So it's a bit more of a genuine like that in between of a Marvel movie and a Raimi movie, like a Sam Raimi movie,
Mm-hmm.
where it still is quite a bit more dramatic.
Right.
Um Things I don't like about it. I don't know. It's not a lot to hate other than it's like kind of old and like,
Yeah.
it's definitely not as flashy and showy as some of the like big ones are now.
Right.
It's definitely an origin story, but it's still like a
Mm-hmm.
pretty kicking origin story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Oh, I love Iron Man. Honestly, like it's like the blueprint, Like for better or for worse, like every other MCU movie is pretty much in that same exact formula as Iron Man.
Yeah,
Like it is the hero's journey but done in a very specific and fun, entertaining way, and like so much so that like every movie after it in this series has some DNA of this movie. So like for me, it's always going to be a great movie just because like it's also just Robert Downey Jr. just putting his own take on this character that is nothing like this in the comics other than he's rich and is Iron Man, like personality wise very different.
right. Because even from the get go, he just kills it.
Right, absolutely. It has, I think, kind of like a staple of the MCU, like right in the first movie, which is casting an incredible actor in a very mundane villain role. So like they kind of crush what little they have to crush. Like Jeff Bridges got the script for this movie, and one of his lines was Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps. And he put so much just like gunpowder in his voice when he says it. I don't even know how to describe it properly. But like that's the thing too, where like he elevates like a very boring villain. Like this movie could have been very average, and it's kind of like the best of all of the mediocre parts of the MCU at the
Yep.
beginning.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Tony Stark built it with the box of scraps and a can.
So I think initially I would want to put this at the B tier, like the top of the B tier.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd
Okay.
agree with that
Okay.
because then as we start getting
And
where
we can
we're
move shit.
considering our A's, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's tough. Because like the one thing that this movie doesn't have that like a lot of movies can't have are the huge moments. Like
Yeah.
the MCU has huge moments that are unparalleled between some of the other movies. So it's like, yeah, it is like one of the top movies, but does it have its huge moment? It kind of does with the very
Mm-hmm.
end of it, where you
Mm-hmm.
just like, I definitely didn't see it coming. Like in the first movie, where it's just, oh, last second of the movie, I'm Iron Man. Like,
Right.
oh shit, okay. Like
Yeah.
it definitely makes you want to watch more because it's like, oh no, it's a superhero movie that was pretty badass, and like in the first movie, he just reveals who he is. It's like,
Right.
whoa, that's like weird and different.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think it does have like what you're saying, it doesn't have like big moments, but like even like the small moments, it's like pretty cool. Like when he just fires that little missile at the tank, like he dodges that tank round and then he just
Oh, that's
fires the little missile. Like stuff
right.
like that is like really like just like nicely done.
Yeah. And I feel like back then too, the armor felt less CGI
I
esque, where like
love the OG armor. Because I was even telling
yeah.
you in the Avengers game, they added the armor, and I was like, "Fuck!" Like I would be Iron Man in that armor.
It feels right. You really
Yeah,
do get a lot of like suit time with Tony in the first one, which is really fun where he's like figuring it out, getting dirty with it, like attaching himself to a
right.
bottom of another plane and like going to like another country to like go fight. There's a lot of like mileage that his original suit gets that's it's fun to like be along for the ride for.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. That suit like has a special place in my heart for sure. All right. Moving on to a bit more of a
Yeah.
controversial one in terms of a lot of people like kind of
Oh.
drag this movie down. I think this movie's like fine. I don't think it's terrible. I think it's got some fun parts. But the Incredible Hulk.
Yep. So this is one where it probably teeters right on my edge of like, is it in the top? Is it in the bottom? It's one that probably moves the most often as they come out with shitty movies.
Yeah.
It'll get bumped up more as like when they come out with shitty movies,
Hmm.
because I do still think it's better than some of the worst MCU
Yeah.
that's come out.
Yeah.
And I think a big aspect to that is just the dramatic, like, storytelling that the
Hmm.
MCU doesn't have currently in like a lot of the movies specifically. I think they've changed it with some of the shows, but like the movies themselves like don't necessarily get like that level of drama where it's like you would almost consider it cringy, but because it's like literally an action drama, you like kind of still want those moments where you're lingering a little too long on a scene.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think for me, I would be putting it in the C tier, but it would maybe be in like low C
Yeah.
potentially.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
No, for
low
sure.
C or high D maybe.
I would agree mostly with that. I think it's interesting going back and seeing Edward Norton as the Hulk.
Yeah.
I think he does like a pretty solid job at it, honestly. Like I like him as the Hulk. I've never been super big on Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk. Um, and honestly, like the line that will break me forever, and I told us it's the Endgame line. It's like I was born for this. Like that fucking line. Like that was kind of the epitome of like, all right, Ruffalo, let's pack it in.
I was born for this.
Anyways, that's like 80 movies ahead of this, but
I
um,
agree though. Like where because Mark Ruffalo doesn't have his own movie.
yeah,
Like this is the Hulk movie.
right.
Yeah.
The only one.
The only other time that we get like even close to this much Hulk is Ragnarok. So it's like this is we don't really have that much time with Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, and like even his side stuff that we do get with him is like the weirder love interest that happens during the series.
Hmm.
So it's like I feel like they didn't necessarily do him dirty, but they didn't like knock it out of the park with his like the like what they gave him just in the rest of the series. That's like a Mark Ruffalo tangent. This is all about the Incredible Hulk right now.
Yeah.
um yeah, the things I don't know, they casted pretty well. I probably could have done without what's her name?
The man.
Heroine or Lord of the Rings girl.
Oh, Liv Tyler.
I don't know if I loved her as Betty Brant. I didn't necessarily dislike her, but I don't know. It's just kind of the same thing where she's like she is a lot more of a dramatic. She was maybe too much of a dramatic actor for that role.
Yeah.
Like where it's like I know it's a more dramatic movie and that's what I like about it. She maybe took that a little too far, which
Yeah.
like I know Edward Norton kind of does as well, but it's
Um,
yeah.
dude, so somebody told me this about her as an actress, and I can't unsee or hear it, but she talks it like out of breath all the time, every single line.
Yes. Absolutely.
And I've never had minded her as an actress. She was never one of my favorites, and I could never pin it. But now that I know what it is, it bothers me.
And it makes sense why the only role that I really like her in is when she's an elf and she's like a light like spirit.
Yeah.
Like no, I agree with that. I think it is really cool that they kept General Ross throughout the series.
Yeah.
I think that like that General Ross was like a really good guy that you didn't want to like. That
Right.
was like really solid in that role. Kind of like the Obadiah Stane. He was just kind of like Yeah, not even an overcast. Just like, dude did exactly what he had to do.
Right. Yeah. I put it in D for now.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
Just so we
like
got a
maybe a
nice
high
set.
D, but we'll see where this lands. All right,
Right.
now we're on Iron Man 2.
Ooh, okay.
I did
Okay.
rewatch this recently, and it's not great.
Oh man.
It's
Uh
fine. Honestly,
yeah.
the racing scene at the beginning is really fucking cool, if not totally absurd, and does not make any sense of why he would be able to race. But like, whatever. Like, this is the MCU.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But that scene is really cool. Like when Whiplash like cuts through all the cars with all that shit. Like that's really fun. That scene's really
Yep.
interesting. And like they ruined it in the trailers, but when he has the suit, the suitcase suit,
Yeah.
like that's fucking dope. And it's I don't remember who I was watching about, but they were saying something like. They ruined that moment in the trailer because it's like if you didn't know what that box was and all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's a suit. That's what that is, like. And they also did make it just look like, oh, that's definitely a suit in there because it looks like this like
It's the
Hasbro like
same
Iron Man case.
color.
Yeah.
Right, right. No, we
Um,
definitely got a lot of firsts in that movie in terms of like the progression, because this is what the third movie. The third movie is the second Iron Man,
yeah.
so it does still have. This is where it like starts teetering a little bit more into a formula in terms of
Oh,
like,
100% early on.
right, right, exactly, and
Hmm.
so the things that they did well in the first one, I feel like they still did well in the second one, but it just doesn't have the same new, like a fresh feeling that the first one does.
Right. Like there's some cool things about it, but it definitely has like not a lot of originality to it. It
Hmm.
apparently pissed off John Favreau, so he left for a while. Even though he was
That's
still happy
right.
Hogan and shit, but the
Oh,
villain kind of sucked.
yes. Okay, cool. That's like literally because I was gonna say like we could watch the trailer because I'm forgetting some of the movie.
Uh-huh.
But I'm remembering it now. I really didn't like Hammer. Like, or what was, is that what this one was? This is Hammer?
Yeah, that's Justin
Yeah,
Hammer.
that's the
Yeah, they
company.
wasted
Yeah.
him because like
Yeah.
they made
Not a
him.
great casting. Not great
Well,
casting.
I love that actor, and it's like
Mhm.
if they would have had a different direction for him because they made him an idiot and like like he's not even an interesting villain because there's no threat to him, like
Right.
if he
Right.
starts like kind of getting close to cracking it but he's like one thing away, it makes it a much more interesting race. And like because he is kind of like a dumbass and a jackass, that's what makes it dangerous because he doesn't have the responsibility.
And like they kind of made him an idiot too,
Oh
like
yeah.
in a lot of parts. And it's just like he's like building shit though. Like he is kind of supposed to be not at the same level, but pretty
Hmm.
close to what Tony Stark
I
is in
guess he
terms of
is. Elon Musk is in fact in this movie, but I guess he is Elon Musk in the sense where he's kind of an idiot that just has a lot of money.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I would put this in the D tier.
Okay, I'd put it high D, I think, for
Okay.
me.
I
I'd probably you put it under the Hulk.
I would put it under the Hulk. I'm like, I don't know, it's a pretty forgettable movie.
So the thing that and this is going to be pretty consistent in my views, I think, is that I think its most redeemable quality are two things. The reintroduction to a new what's his name, Colonel Rhodes, is pretty hilarious.
Hmm.
Not that that's like bad or like good or bad necessarily, but the end scene is like I think one of my favorite Iron Man fights that exists in the
Oh yeah, that one's
MCU.
really cool, yeah.
So like I like that Iron Man fight more than I like all of the Incredible Hulk movie.
Okay.
Um, so that's why I wouldn't put it, like, personally I wouldn't put it under the
Uh-huh.
Incredible Hulk because that's like an Iron Man fight with War Machine where like you get that back to back where like he's doing his red like beams cutting stuff up and Rhodes has got like the machine gun shoulder thing and
Right.
he's like shooting stuff,
Hmm.
dude. And when he does the spinny thing, like
Hmm.
that like 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes at the end of that movie, like
Hmm.
just completely like love it.
Okay.
I thought that was like a
We
lot
can
of
move
fun.
it above Hulk only because I think you do have a good point of where like they're both pretty forgettable, but I at least do remember parts of Iron Man 2 more than Incredible. Like the most thing I remember about Incredible Hulk is when he just goes up and kicks Tim Roth, which honestly, that moment's fucking like that moment is awesome. Like,
Right. Which I am pumped that they're bringing back Abomination. That looks like a little bit of a redesign. That's sweet. Okay, yeah, we can move on.
All right. I do not like the first Thor movie. I think when I first watched this movie, I gave it a lot more benefit of the doubt, and I thought I liked it a lot more. I watched it again, and it was rough.
It is rough. This one and like the Thor series, I feel like just in general didn't nail it until Ragnarok, or like, I mean, it got closer. I think, and this is like a little bit of a tangent, but the Thor outfit really like killed it in Age of Ultron. Was like one of the cooler Thor. Like that was like at the beginning it was like cheesy Avengers, cheesy. Like it gets a little bit better once you get to Age of Ultron. His suit looks like pretty sleek. And that's where his character also gets like a bit more direction. Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
this is like a little bit. This is about Thor, but yes, I agree. In the first one, there's not a lot. I feel like the casting's like kind of meh. I've always disliked Natalie Portman being.
You do dislike Natalie Portman a lot.
I like her in her dramatic roles. Like
Yeah.
there are movies that I like her in, just in general. But like I don't think that me and Natalie Portman would be friends. Unfortunately, I think we'd get along really well at a dinner party, and then it would stop there.
Yeah, I started talking to her. She's a real bitch. Okay,
Yeah.
the worst sin about this movie and why I think this movie should be our first E tier.
Okay, I'll hear it. And you know what? I'm curious. I forgot what I rated it on Letterboxd. I'm curious because I think I dislike it
Wait,
more than
hold
I
on. We can
rated
put it in D tier. I think E might be pretty brutal right now. We might move it down later, like if I think more on it. But it has the ugliest cinematography of any MCU movie. This movie was somehow allowed to do those weird diagonal shots. I don't know if you remember those.
Oh,
They
yeah,
are
dude.
They do them every other shot, and they are the ugliest shots. They do them for establishing shots. They do them for conversation shots. It is so ugly, and it's like one of the critiques of the entirety of the MCU is that there's no artistry to a lot of the cinematography and the look. It's a very kind of like color drawn out look and like very static. There isn't a lot you can do with it because it has to fall under the same umbrella and feel like it is. But that for some reason was given the okay and the green light to do it, and it was the worst representation of that. It's hard for me to watch that movie because every time a shot like that comes up, I'm just like, oh Jesus Christ.
It takes you out, right?
Exactly. This will be the bottom of the D tier for me right now.
I'm down.
Okay.
I'm down.
Because
I think I like it for the fact of, well, and you know, it's not that. Gosh, it's tough. I wish they did more with his companions, like Lady Sif. Gosh, I'm forgetting the rest of their names.
Yeah.
Was Alder, because they're like badasses. They're supposed to, and like in the movies, they are like pretty badass. But I do wish we got more of them just in general in the MCU because like they're just straight up like they're supposed to be just like mildly just as good as Thor, just without lightning abilities. Like they're like titans.
But one of them are dead now.
Yeah, right.
Which like we'll get to that movie too, but like wow. Okay. Man. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So no, I'm down with that.
Yeah.
I'm down with
all right. We got Captain America: The First Avenger.
So you rate this one a lot higher than I do.
I love this movie. I think this movie is underrated, but go ahead.
No, you go. I think we should start good.
I have a lot of fond memories of this movie.
Because I'm also willing to. I'm like kind of going into this a little bit fresh. I try not to like brush myself up too much. So I'm willing to have this conversation change my mind on some things, and then like because I think as we go, I'll like interject and want to change some things. Too.
Okay. So first of all, when Chris Evans was announced as Captain America, I was immediately, and I remember this back in the day, I was one of the people where I was like, I think he will do a great job. I think he will be a great Captain America. I loved him as Johnny Storm, but I'd seen him in a few other movies too, and I knew he had this kind of like ability to be like a nobility, like kind of like thing that he could really pull off. He can pull off the jackass, but he can also pull off a noble kind of thing. I can see that. I was really interested in this movie. I love the cast. The cast top to bottom is excellent. Tommy Lee Jones is actually really good in this movie. He has one of the funniest lines in the movie when he kisses Agent Carter before he goes on the plane at the end of the movie, and then he looks at him. He's like, "I'm not kissing you," like that. Like just a great like funny lines like that are throughout. Sebastian Stan, he's in this movie before he even starts being the Winter Soldier. He's just Bucky. As like a period piece, it's really fun because it's in the 40s. The campiness of the origin is a little bit more natural because it feels like it can be campy back then. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
where like Thor is campy, Iron Man's even a little campy. I think Captain America is able to pull it off because in the 40s it was a little more in line with how things felt back then. It was a little bit more like clean cut and presented. I love that he was a joke. I love how much they shit on Steve Rogers at first. Like he sucks, but dude does not give up. Like the character work they do in this movie is excellent. I'm kind of just talking about things I randomly just like about the movie, but I think it's an
Yeah.
origin story too. Like it does a great job of establishing one of the pinnacle characters in the MCU and showing that he is just an every guy that was like it wasn't that he was the strongest or this, it was because like of who he was as a person and how much they were able to show that on screen in this movie. Like there is I would say like it's not the best MCU movie, but it's the MCU movie with the most heart.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, because it's kind of that same like anybody could be behind the mask kind of ideal.
Right. It has
Yeah.
like a bit of a Spider-Man kind of vibe, yeah.
Because
Um,
I do also do love and this is something that I just in general loved about a lot of the earlier ones is that the costumes, the outfits were like deliciously cheesy and like very like trying to be one to one from like what the OG like costume looks like too.
right.
And I'm a sucker for it. I'm like being like a comic fan. Like it's just you give me that like on a big screen and I'm gonna cream my
hmm
jeans. Like, well, yeah, let's go.
hmm So I personally would put this movie at an A tier, but that's pretty high.
Oh,
So
wow.
I
Yeah.
I would put this movie at a B tier.
Yeah.
I would have to be
So
argued down to a C.
so I think this movie is very boring.
Uh-huh.
In respect to what has come out up until this point.
Yeah.
Especially with what follows. So I think I disliked this movie more after the next movies that came out.
Okay.
I started disliking this movie more and more as the next movies came out.
Okay.
I don't think it was necessarily after seeing this movie that I just disliked it like as like that much. It was just like I felt like they did them so dirty in terms of like going into the big Avengers movie, I was the least excited to see Captain America in like the
Oh,
Avengers.
100%.
And so like for me that doesn't touch the top half of my list if that's the case.
They
Like
well, I don't think that that's this movie's fault. I think that's more of the Avengers' fault because this movie was able to have him established and work within that itself as a movie, which like you can take points away from it that it's not helping the bigger picture. But in the Avengers, like you literally have Thor and Hulk, and like you say Cap is the leader, but he literally is just on the bridge the whole fucking movie. You know, like that's like
right.
I have like once we get to like oh the Avengers is actually next. Like I like Avengers has like dropped for me quite a bit because I think it
Yeah.
does a handful of characters dirty.
hmm
So where you feel comfortable putting this? Do you want to put it in C for now? But we can.
I'd put it in C. C is like a pretty fair like
Okay.
middle ground
Okay.
because I think for me it is like bottom seven.
Oh damn. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think that the bad guy ends up being forgettable. Red Skull doesn't turn into Red Skull until like the last couple minutes of the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think that all of the action it looks pretty bad with his shield. I don't like his shield work ends up looking a lot better. And I know this is him starting to become Captain America,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like all part of it, but it's still a movie that I have to watch. So like if you're gonna make it boring, I'm not gonna feel bad for saying
Mm-hmm.
that it was boring. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like I like totally get like character development, but we spent more than half the movie with, like you said, like with them shitting on him, and then on top of that, we didn't even get a great fight scene like with Captain America in that movie. Just period. Like
Mm-hmm.
he didn't go toe to toe with anybody, and I felt like he walked out of that with like, damn, that was like great choreography. That was like really solid like movement, really
Mm-hmm.
good shots. I think that in terms of an action movie, this like really missed the mark. And he's like literally the like he's like the guy. He's the captain. He's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be. And I will say that I think that they learned that lesson when we get to the second one.
Yeah. Yeah. I would argue that a Captain America movie should be not about violence, but that is another argument for a different day.
Yeah, right. Very fair.
All right, so Avengers. All right, so I think initially thinking about this movie, I want to say I love it, but after rewatching it like twice, I would be hard pressed to want to put this above a B, probably more of a C. I think
Mhm.
it has this weird like Fisher Price plasticity to it where everybody kind of feels like they're there but not like they didn't really think through how they wanted these characters to interact. They just kind of threw them together, you
Mhm.
know, because like as you can see in these other team up movies, like you can really see where it's like, okay, these characters are going to interact and we're going to have these personalities really kind of gel against each other, and that is a product of them being able to like do this over time and kind of learn how to put these characters and like who works best together. But like at the beginning, you take one of the main six and turn him evil immediately, which I think is one of the worst ideas, like with Hawkeye. Like
Right.
he
Oh,
immediately gets
I
turned in, like
totally
mind
forgot about that
controlled.
whole thing. Right.
And
And
that,
like the doctor guy from Thor is
yeah.
like part of his right hand to help out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The intro's weird. It starts off like in that shield thing, and Loki just kind of shows up out of nowhere. And then obviously, like, mind controls Hawkeye and shit, and they escape out of that tunnel.
Yep.
Um, I don't know. The writing's not great. I think it does a good job of like the final like New York fight is awesome. Like
Right.
that's awesome. Like I think it is the best Hulk has been in the MCU. Like the Avengers is the best Hulk has ever been.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Like they
I
nailed.
yeah, he did like I think it was like pretty critical, like critically acclaimed of like coming out of that movie. Like Hulk was awesome, like because
Yeah,
that was actually the first one that we actually get Hulk in.
yeah,
Mark Ruffalo Hulk. Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
Which
always
is
angry. That's
yeah,
like that's the classic line from that movie.
yeah. Which is yeah. I
No, I definitely agree. It feels very hodgepodge for what it is. And I don't even want to use the excuse of like, yeah, this is. I'll mention it, but I'd like know that I'm not using it as an excuse. The fact that like it is all like their first time all being together, so like it would be like they would be kind of dysfunctional
yeah,
and not gel well together. But I don't think that that's fair because that would go against my point from the last movie of
yeah,
like I still want it to like look good and like feel
yeah.
good, and I think they still I agree that like the downtime felt a lot weirder between characters, but then like during the last battle where they're just kind of like bouncing off of each other or just like and not like even bouncing off of each other, but you're the camera bouncing between the characters watching them fight
Mm-hmm.
within a city, like they're fighting robot aliens in a city like trying to save it. That was like you give me an Avengers movie and that's an Avengers level threat that I want to
Mm-hmm.
watch unfold. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um
I think it's a good
yeah.
spectacle, but it's not a good movie. You know,
Yeah, I
like
agree with that. It's a lot. They definitely like shove a lot into that
yeah,
movie.
because like
Um,
it's one of those things too where I remember vividly when this movie came out. It was like going in. It's like this movie would have to be so bad for me not to like it. Because like at the end of the day, like all of these characters are teaming up. Like I'm going to be like cool, you know. Like,
and we do get kind of the most exposition that sets up the rest of the universe, just kind of in general with like this is the big evil. here's the dude that's helping it happen, here's all of the players, and that's just kind of like shat at the wall while they're just like, oh, but also here's everything else that you wanted of
Right.
like fight scenes and like team ups and stuff. So it's like we don't know how to do this the right way. We're just gonna shit it into a bowl, but then like we're gonna put a bunch of like ice cream and like good shit on top of it.
Right, right.
And
No,
hopefully you just
exactly.
don't care. Because I feel like they did the opposite with, never mind. I was gonna say Age of Ultron, but we'll just get there when we get
No,
there.
no, no, for sure. Well, like that's like something interesting talking about these movies is it's like there are a lot of pieces in them that it's like if you don't find value in certain things, your value of the movie will go up and down very like differently from somebody else,
Right.
you know. Um I would say let's put like it's either got to be high C or low B.
Um I would say yes. Wait, what's I can't see what's in the B tier right now.
Just Iron Man.
Just Iron Man?
Yeah. I would put Iron Man
Uh
above Avengers just
I
because I
would
think Iron
too.
Man is a
I would
better
too.
movie.
Yeah, I
Because
agree
that's the
with
thing
that.
too is like a lot of times it's like balancing like there are movies that are just like Endgame where it's almost just pure spectacle at that point where it's I can't even judge it as a movie, almost more just like no it's dope, you know. Like
Right. Yes,
where it's
yes.
like Avengers, it's like Iron Man is a better movie but it's like Avengers might be more fun, you know, like
Yeah. I'd put it high C.
I
Let's put
see.
it at the
Okay,
very front of
I
C,
like
and
that,
then
I like that.
we'll see we'll see if it ends up going to like a low B,
Okay,
depending on what it's put in B.
all right, now we're in phase two.
Oh, phase
uh
two, baby.
First movie is Iron Man 3, which I think is a very underrated MCU movie.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Um,
I think that you get a lot of really fun the like big when I remember my big thought coming out of seeing Iron Man 3 was like that was really cool that we got a mostly Tony Stark movie as
oh
opposed
yeah.
to like a mostly Iron Man movie because it's like you forget how smart Tony Stark is. So like when he's fighting the like Russian lady or whatever in the restaurant and he like makes a bomb in like a split
Yeah.
second out of the microwave, it's like
Hmm.
you forget how smart he is. He doesn't need like all of this stuff. He like needs his brain and like whatever he can find in his surroundings, and he's
Right.
still kicking
He
ass.
made the
Like
armor. You know, the armor didn't make him.
right,
Like
right,
that's the thesis
exactly.
of the movie and like so I love almost all of this movie. I think like the front 80% of this movie is great.
Yeah.
I think people went in with expectations on like Mandarin and shit, and like that's a whole nother thing. Like if you don't enjoy that, that'll make or break this movie for you.
Yes, I agree.
But like I didn't really fucking care. But I will say the finale where like all the armor shows up is the coolest setup, but the worst payoff
Yeah,
for
I
almost
agree with
any
that.
spectacle because like where like you were talking like Iron Man 2 had a really good ending. It's like 80% of that movie for me is almost forgettable, like the race scene, whatever. But Iron Man 3 is like, I remember most of that movie, but like that ending fight every time, I'm like, oh, that's right. Fucking Pepper Potts gets powers and kills like the guy
Yeah.
who's like, I'm the Mandarin.
Yep. You know,
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. I think the end of that movie is like kind of a miss, and it's not even that like I didn't think the bad guy was that bad. He just wasn't. He just it wasn't that great. Like, I don't even know why. It's not that he was necessarily forgettable, but yeah, I think they made a lot of weird mistakes with like the events that surrounded him.
Hmm.
That made it like in the end, it just kind of gave you a weird taste in your mouth, or you just kind of left off just feeling weird.
Right.
But
Yeah.
no, I think most of that movie is like pretty spanking.
Oh yeah, for
Um,
sure. It has some of the some really cool action sequences too, with like where he only has like the boot of the Iron Man suit and he has like an Uzi, so he's like flying around shooting with like one boot. Like that shit is so cool. Like I
yeah,
feel like they were like, how can we reinvigorate this? Because obviously, too, like what we complain about most is it's just retreading. So it's like they can't just have him Iron Man suit in again. Like, what can we do? So I like
right.
that this movie was almost like a challenge to themselves. And it didn't totally deliver, but I think it was really fucking close to being almost as good as the first one.
Right. Yep. I don't know where I'd put it, honestly.
I would either go high C or low B for this movie.
I do high C. I don't know if I would put it above Avengers or not.
I would, but if you don't, I would be willing to put it under Avengers because I'm not that like I like this movie. I will like tell people it's underrated, but I don't think it's like the best one.
Well, I'll put it under. Let's put it under Avengers because I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
Yeah. No, that looks right.
Because
Man.
Avengers still just has,
Oh,
because I
Captain
think we're gonna
America.
run into it a lot of times in this list, is that there's some movies that are just good movies. There's some movies that are just bad movies. There's some movies that are
Right.
just bad movies with like the best part of
Yeah.
like any movie that it could have,
Right.
and I think they're all factors. And I think the Avengers just being the Avengers is better than a third Iron Man movie.
I would 100% agree with that. Yeah, speaking of bad movies, we do have Thor: The Dark World, which will be firmly
Oh
placed in the
yeah.
Thor: The Dark World tier.
I don't even know.
Congratulations.
I don't even know what to say about it. I
It is
watched.
the most forgettable movie. It has things
Um,
that happen, and I remember being like, "Oh, that's kind of cool," but then I won't remember any of it.
nah, nah. It is, yeah. It's more Natalie Portman. We all
Hmm.
know I don't like her.
Hmm.
And I don't remember anything else that happens.
And I've seen this movie multiple times.
I've definitely seen it twice, but it's like I don't know, man. It's just not great. It's not
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, because it does
It
have a
doesn't.
little bit more of like the warriors that you were talking about, but like barely,
Mhm.
like just a little bit, and it's like
Yeah.
it would have been cooler if we had a bit more of a team up with them than what. And
Not
yeah,
even they could fix this movie.
I will say the
Yeah.
one of the best cameos is in this movie, and it's Chris Evans. He appears when Loki transforms into Captain America, mocking him, and it's fantastic because Chris
Yes, I
Evans does
totally forgot
such a
about
good
that.
job of impersonating himself of like being Loki. Like it's so
Yep.
good. Anyways, all right. Now speaking of Chris Evans, Captain America 2. I think you and I will align closer on this one. That this
Yeah,
movie
I
slaps.
it slaps. I mean, this
Yeah.
is like
Is this the
for
first Stan Lee movie?
um
Or should we put it in A
A.
for now?
I'd
And
put it
okay,
in A.
okay.
Yeah, put it in A for
You know
now.
what? That's fair. Stanley, it requires a pretty big cock.
Because now that I'm looking at this too, and I don't want to move anything just yet. I think we need more on the board before we move anything.
Uh huh.
But like, is it better than Iron Man? I'm like questioning
Yes.
myself now. It's like, okay, yeah, no, I agree.
I think okay, only because I think a like you were saying, so like your biggest complaint about the first Captain America, which like I was more like I'm fine with, but that was like you're like he doesn't feel like he belongs, like almost kind of because like his action scenes were not great, and it's like you're the leader, you should be like
Right, right.
like up there, and it's like immediately the first action scene he fucking punts a guy off the side of a boat, and it's like that is such a good just like all right here we go like this is the
Yo,
new norm like
yup.
he has that fight with the UFC dude who shows up in Falcon and Winter Soldier later too.
Georges St. Pierre.
Yeah. That was really fun.
Yeah.
But Sebastian Stan is really fun as a Winter Soldier in this, and it has some of the best choreographed like fight scenes, and like honestly, like from now until Shang-Chi, like was like the standard, but Shang-Chi I think is a little bit like probably better now.
It had the classic the like series renowned knife trick of
Oh
like when they're
yeah,
like when they're fighting and he like catches the knife and
yep.
like oh dude that's like iconic. Some
Um,
of that work is just like way too good. But yeah, no, I mean this movie literally when I came out of this movie I was like they fixed every problem that I had with the first Captain America
mhm,
movie
mhm,
with this one. I was
mhm.
like this was incredible.
Yeah,
Like this was Captain America standing up for what he thought was right. Again, like,
right.
even when he didn't know whether or not it was his own government like going
Mhm,
against him. This was like him just being like something doesn't feel right. And it's not
mhm,
something so clear cut as like hero registration. It's like no, he just feels like there's something wrong with this like freedom and like
mhm.
security and like national protection. It's like fuck yeah,
He's
Captain America.
not the smartest person in the room at all times, but he always knows what's right and wrong. Like that is always a defining characteristic, like
Yeah.
yeah, it's
And
and
it
it
and it does bite him in the ass.
yeah.
He is the one that fails probably the hardest
Yeah.
in the whole series when it comes to
Uh,
the end of it all. You know,
thank God
his
he's Chris Evans though.
I know,
That'll
dude.
help you bounce back from failures.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
No,
Um,
I agree with that placement. It's fantastic. You get some great Natasha Romanoff as well, which
yeah,
is
and
awesome.
honestly, like I think it's one of her best movies. Like I think it's
Yeah.
probably the one of the best Black Widow appearances other than Endgame. Like I think she
Yep.
is really good in the movie and like they have really good chemistry off of each other.
Hmm.
Samuel L. Jackson even gets like a weirdly cool fight scene, even though it ends with him like tunneling with some sort of fucking lightsaber, which I don't
Yeah.
understand, but whatever.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It's fucking Nick
Um,
Fury.
it has the elevator scene, which is like an iconic thing. Like
Yes.
even so iconic, it was referenced itself. It referenced itself in Endgame, which is like insane. But
Right. Anybody
um,
want to get out?
yeah.
Dude, so good.
Oh
What a
yeah.
line. And
Oh
then he
yeah.
fucking breaks through the elevator, slides down the building, gets on a bike, throws the bike at a helicopter. Like
Hmm.
the oh god, when that movie starts coming, it doesn't stop for a
Hmm.
while.
Oh
Like
yeah, it's great.
the
It even
payoff,
has a an
yeah,
evil Nazi inside of a computer.
it's perfect.
It has everything you'd want. All right.
Okay, I think that's pretty good there.
All right. We have another banger in Guardians of the Galaxy. This is
I
one where I would say maybe might be our first Stanley.
I would agree with that. I would
Yeah.
agree with that. I think that's pretty fair because I would definitely put it above Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
This is a movie where it's like origin story, just gorgeous,
Mm-hmm.
like great casting,
Mm-hmm.
great story, like good filmography, like all the CGI looked gorgeous. The soundtrack was fucking killer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean this movie just like fucking slapped.
It really well, like the fact that this is like the most D-list Marvel team. I
Mhm.
like we're nerdy people. I didn't know who the fuck they were going into this movie.
Just vaguely. I knew Star Lord. That was like really. I
Yeah,
didn't really
pretty much
know.
the
I knew
same.
Star Lord and Rocket Raccoon. I didn't really know like
I think I knew
Gamora
like
and
that there
Drax.
was a raccoon. You know, like I didn't
Yeah,
know like the
right.
fucking team or
I
anything,
played
but
as him in some game when I was
yeah.
a teenager. Like,
Um, but like watched that movie and literally walked out and just like holy shit. Like that's not even just like because like the thing about like that's always the disclaimer for like the letterboxd reviews is like 5 stars out of 5 stars for a Marvel movie is not 1 to 1 to like normal films. You know what I mean?
right,
But Guardians is that
right.
first film where it's like I would recommend this film to people who don't like comic book movies because it's just a good movie. Like
Good sci-fi movie. Like
yeah.
if you are a fan of sci-fi and not even like exactly like you said, like not even comic book specific, this is like a great sci-fi movie.
Mm-hmm.
Great soundtrack. Like this was one of the first times we got to see Chris Pratt in like a serious, like quote unquote serious, like
Mm-hmm.
bulky role outside of Parks and Rec, which was also like I think just groundbreaking for the like for the nation in general to see him in a different light, and he killed it. Like,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean like the intro, I love the intro with him just skipping around to the soundtrack. Like that's iconic to me. That whole soundtrack, I mean obviously like there's a reason that that's like one of the top selling like movie soundtracks of all time. Like pretty nuts. Like
no,
that movie
yeah,
like the fact that like I have neighbors that are like my mom's age that like they know Baby Groot and Rocket Raccoon just as well as Iron Man and shit. It's like this is the strangest timeline we live in.
right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. No, I
Um
think that's perfect. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that feels right. All right, now we have
Yep.
Avengers Age of Ultron, which I'm not high on and I don't think you're too high on.
So I think that this is probably the one where I differ from a lot of people because I would put it higher personally.
Okay.
Because for me, I mean, the big thing that like the biggest demerit against this movie are the one-liners. The one-liners make the characters in the movie feel like a fucking like Universal Studios ride. Yeah,
Mhm.
like they feel so poster board. They
Oh yeah.
feel very flat and like very little depth. But the one thing that I mean, we have so there's so many movies. There's so many freaking movies, and they're Avengers movies.
Mhm.
They're Marvel movies. Is I think this is the Marvel movie where we get the most time with the core Avengers being core Avengers with each other. I think, like, kind of like
Right.
what you were talking about with the first Avengers, how they don't really mesh together. I think that what this movie has is kind of looked over a lot just because of what it is, but what you do lack in that first Avengers movie is where, like, you're not actually getting them mingling. Like, their chemistry kind of feels off.
Mm-hmm.
The dinner party right before
That's
they meet
literally one of the
Ultron
best scenes in that movie. Yeah.
is like one of the best scenes. It's so cool, so fun to watch those
Mm-hmm.
interactions just in general. And then I think the very end, I mean, and this is all with the asterisk that this entire movie is riddled with one-liners that are absolutely unbearable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the end fight scene, like, just in general, is some of the most fun to watch the Avengers like play off of each other, because
Mm-hmm.
after this movie, you don't get the core Avengers fighting together anymore.
Right.
The only other time that you get it is Endgame, and that's literally everyone. That's not fair to
Right.
say that that's the Avengers fighting together. That's like literally the fucking MCU fighting
Right.
together.
Yeah.
So I think this movie gets a bad rap for a good reason, but it gets bumped up quite a bit for me because of I am a sucker for, like, and I mean, you're gonna see it a lot. I do love, like, the good fights. Good fight scenes in, like, a high production movie is gonna get, like, big bucks from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they nail a lot of the, like, action. I mean, it's pretty easy. Bunch of robots. It's kind of the same as the first Avengers, except they're just not
So
space robots. They're just
yeah.
mind computer robots.
Right. So like I agree with most, if not all of the points that you make, because like my favorite parts about this movie are the dinner party. Like it's so fun, like the whole like roadie like trying to tell a story and nobody's impressed, but he finally talks to normal people and not Avengers, tells the story and it kills, and he's like, I fucking knew it. Like it is a good, like that kind of moment. Those are fun.
Yeah.
And like that whole party, them lifting Thor's hammer, like that entire scene is just dripping with so much. Like how do you not enjoy that? Hawkeye's house is another great like just character development scene where we can slow down a bit. I would say like
Yeah.
that's like the best parts about this movie are the slow moments, because I would say the fast moments are great, and like what you said, there are great action scenes, but they do, it's like it's a lot of Iron Man 2 problems for me, where like it's a lot of the same, and that doesn't make it bad, but I've seen it before, because it even has a very similar like panning circular shot to the first Avengers. Like
Right.
they're
In
fighting people in this one,
yeah.
you
Between
know?
the columns and
Yeah.
stuff. Yep.
So like
Yep.
it's even stuff like that where it's just like I can feel a lot of like meddling going on, where it's just like, well, it worked in the first one, like kind of vibes in this movie that like weigh it down. And I like you said, the one-liners, and I think some characters are misused again. I think this is the one of the best Hawkeye appearances, weirdly enough. Like he's
Agreed.
one of the best in this movie. I think it has the
That
best Captain America suit too.
my favorite Hawkeye scene is definitely when it is sad. It's a somber moment in the movie because it's like what's his name? Something James Taylor, Matthew James McConaughey Taylor. The guy that was Quicksilver?
Oh,
Um
Aaron Taylor Johnson.
yeah. Aaron Taylor Johnson. It's after he dies, and once he like carries him back onto the ship and like lays him down on the floor, and he lays on the seats like next to him,
Uh-huh.
and like he's just laying there. That I don't know why, but like that scene always just like resonated with me as just
Yeah.
like just soldiers, like soldiers in
Hmm.
the battlefield. That's like, yeah, I agree. It's like definitely one of my favorite Hawkeye moments is like just all of that. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
because he has some of the best like actual humor in the movie too. Because like where we were complaining about a lot of the one-liners in the movie, like he has some great jokes. Like one that I remember is like when Scarlet Witch is like, "How is this all happening?" He's like, "I shoot arrows. There's robots outside. We're in a floating city. None of this makes sense." Like I love that kind of like that's the energy he should be bringing.
right. Like
Um,
you telling me you can lift shit with your mind, and you're asking me like
yeah.
for advice. Like, dude, I got a stick in a like a string. That's it.
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, this movie's just very up and down. Like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of the epitome of it. Is it's like I don't think I disagree with anything you've said. I don't think you've like kind of had any strong opinions about any of the complaints I've had. It's like you agree, but you know it's the
Yep.
stock you put in it. But like I would put this in the C tier, like alongside
I would even say, because I've thought about this.
Uh,
So one more point is that this is also the movie where it explains the Infinity Stones.
yeah.
It's the first time that we get to see what the Infinity Stones are.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. And that's also a point about the movie too, is like it does feel like it is a very much like, all right, we're like setting up a lot of shit in this movie.
like real low key though.
Yeah.
Like it's not very obvious. It's just like there's a lot of shit happening, but like also, so I would do either bottom C or the top of D. I would be fine with putting it to the top of D. Because okay, so if we put it in C, here's what it is. If you want it in C, it goes above Captain America. If you don't want it above Captain America, it goes in
It
D.
goes into.
Because I like that movie more than I like
I no,
Captain
I can
America.
totally. Yeah, that's fair. We have to make
So
some.
like
Yeah.
so I can't have it be next to Captain America below
Uh-huh.
it. I just
Uh-huh.
need it to be in a
A
different tier.
different tier. No, that's fair. That's fair. All right.
Because I can also accept that one being in a bottom. Like I think on my list it is in the top half, but
Uh-huh.
I can accept it being the first in the bottom half.
Right. Well, it's a movie too where I appreciate it has elements that I will always remember and it sticks out because of like especially how much it foreshadows like all of the like the next two Avengers films that like even just like Cap's like half cracked shield. Shit like that where it's just like whoa. Like there are a
Right.
lot
Yeah.
of like things in here.
Right.
Like there's a lot of things I like about the movie, but just as like a movie overall, it's not like one I seek out to watch. Like I can watch most of the other Avengers movie, but I don't really seek this one out. It's kind of a weird one, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
All right, the end of phase 2, we have Ant-Man as the very last movie. A weird movie to end a weird phase, a very up and down phase, because you have some of the best in the series and some of the worst.
Mhm. This is like I don't know. I don't care about Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. I don't mind him,
Yeah,
but I don't love it.
yeah,
Just in general. It's one of those like little things where it's like I don't think they needed to give the funny guy an entire movie. So like don't
right.
make him the funny guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you know, they gave the funny guy an entire movie. They gave the funny guy
They
two
gave
entire movies.
Fez an entire season. Yeah.
And like if you love Fez, that's fucking awesome. But like I like it
No,
just
I
I love
agree. Yeah.
and I don't dislike Paul Rudd. I actually like love Paul Rudd. I don't even dislike him in this role. I think he's definitely grown on me, and I think I enjoy him a lot more later on in the series, not in his movies. I like
Uh-huh.
him a lot more when he's interacting with the rest of the Avengers.
So,
Because it's just kind of like lighthearted and fun, but
jumping forward just a tad off that point, I
yeah.
agree the exact same with you, 100%. And another character that's the exact same way as Doctor Strange for me. I think he is at his best
Oh,
when
yeah.
he interacts with others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, Ant-Man. I think it's a fun movie. I think it's leagues better than the second one because the second one is just weird as shit. But this
Mhm.
movie, it's like I can see Edgar Wright's DNA on it a little bit, where it's like this fun heist that he was gonna put together, but it doesn't have. It's a very like straightforward movie, I guess.
Mhm.
I think the effects
Mhm.
are great. Like that's something I love about this movie is like
Yep.
it's fun watching all of the things like grow and shrink and like the Thomas the Tank Engine, like him using that as a fucking weapon by growing it. You know, it's like it's a movie that like is both its best element and its worst element is how absurd it is, you know?
Right, right. No, I think they absolutely kill it with like all of the. I never get sick of watching things expand and shrink like
Right.
in the entire series. But no, no disrespect to Paul Rudd. Disrespect to the way that they portray that Ant-Man. And it's also because it's not Hank Pym. It's literally somebody else. Like
Yeah.
I do want personally, it's like, yeah, I want Hank Pym to be my Ant-Man. I want it to
Yeah.
be the sassy asshole. Like I
Yeah.
want it to be the sassy asshole who's also super smart, not
Right.
the funny not the funny character
Mhm.
who is like comic relief, but like is still dope somehow. Like it is
Right.
cool that they made him a burglar. I think that they like did him because that's the thing is like I don't think his movie's bad. I just don't care. Like
Right.
it's
Yeah.
this is probably the first Marvel movie where I like kind of came out of it and was just like I don't
Meh.
care.
Well, yeah, and I'll go into that in a sec. Also, my brother's in the chat. What's up, Ryan?
What's up, dude?
Yeah, Paul Rudd disrespect. That's a paddle.
That's a battling.
I would put this in like either I would put this like above Iron Man 2, below Avengers.
I'd be fine with it. Like I
Okay.
said,
It's like you could
I
convince
like
me it's in C
I don't
too,
care.
but like I don't. Yeah, you know.
That's the thing, and it's like and it's not even that I. This is another one where I'm just like it could be, it probably would be in my bottom half just in general.
Yeah.
Because there's so many movies. If I don't care, then it's just gonna invert. It's just gonna end up in the bottom.
Yeah,
just
right.
just because of that.
It's never going to be in the top half, so it doesn't really matter what part of the bottom it ends up for me. All right, so that's the end of phase 2. Now we're moving on to phase 3, which honestly I think phase 3 might be the most consistently great phase.
This feels like, even just looking at the titles, this feels like when they kind of locked in the machine.
Yeah.
When they were
Yeah.
all right, we can kind of churn these movies out.
Yeah. All right. So Civil War is the first one. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, they were kind of, phase 2 was, these were the rest of our like kind of ideas, and like while they were releasing phase 2, it was just like, we got this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We know how to do this shit now.
We figured it out.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's something that a lot of these movies have in common is that I feel like they touched on some of the magic that they were able to capture in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
In terms of like their storytelling and like the CGI, the way that they use CGI is kind of changed quite a bit during this phase, for better and worse. I think, when you get to this phase, you're never seeing CGI the way that they did it in the first Iron Man. So it's like it's never going to have that same effect that the first Iron Man had with some of the like quote unquote first looks. That I think Iron Man just absolutely kills with.
Right.
You like kind of don't get that for a lot of this stuff. But that, I mean, it just is gorgeous. So
yeah. No, I think so. Phase 3, like, yeah, it fucking rips 100%, like 5 stars, like my brother said. Like,
agreed.
It's even the worst movies. Like in this phase, I think the movie I've watched the least is, weirdly enough, Doctor Strange, even though Ant-Man and the Wasp is in this. Because I think I've seen Ant-Man and the Wasp a handful of times because I'm like, is this movie bad? Like, I needed to rewatch it.
Phase. I forgot how, damn.
Anyways, so Civil War, I think it's grown on me a bit. I used to, because what you just mentioned about like Ant-Man, you walked out and you're kind of like, okay, like I might be getting a little burnout. Civil War, even with Spider-Man and everything in it, I walked out of Civil War being like, all right, I might be done with the MCU, which is hilarious because it's literally the best phase. But I think this movie does such a great job of mixing spectacle and story, because not only are you getting Avengers 2.5 in an event movie, you're also getting a story that ties directly into the previous 2 stories that were told in the other, like, Captain America has the best trilogy because his arc goes through all of them, including his last one, which should have just been a spectacle mess that was for everyone, It's like what he was fighting for was still in line with like leading off of Winter Soldier and everything. It has one of the most fun fight scenes in the entire MCU with the airport. Like, it felt like I had my action figures just fucking around, Black Panther has a great story arc in that movie, like a very underrated story arc in that movie. Like, what was the there was a character earlier on, we were like, they should have just been a side character, maybe it was Ant-Man or something, but I love the way they introduced Black Panther, and I think that's like the blueprint now of like, if you want to introduce somebody, maybe put them in a movie, give them a little bit of an arc to give people a taste, then he can have his own solo movie. But
this is where you're gonna get the true first Ryan bias.
Yeah.
It's got my boy.
It's got
It's got
Spider-Man. It's the
it's
first
got the
one.
web
Yeah.
head.
Yeah.
It's got the web head, and I think it was like such a great introduction to his character.
Mm-hmm.
Just in general, the way they did,
Yeah.
like in terms of origin story, like, yeah, we've seen it a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's almost like that scene is Tony Stark just talking to us directly in terms of Spider-Man fans. That's just like, cut the shit, this is you, here's the
Right.
video of you like catching a car in
Yeah.
midair. Like, I need your help.
Right.
So cool. Great costume. Like the introduction's awesome. His banter is incredible. This is the first time we get to see Tom Holland as Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time we get to see the best rendition of Spider-Man so far.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
gonna talk about Spider-Man so
Oh,
much.
I mean,
Uh,
dude, we have
uh,
we haven't even gotten to the Spider-Man movies yet, and
I
we have
know.
three to rank. So
I know. So already the Spider-Man bias is going to be strong with me. I think the movie suffers just I from being a lot like from time to time.
so that's my main complaint with the movie.
It gets quote unquote political, which can be a little wishy-washy for some like general viewers. I think it's a really cool way they do it, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's like a really good tie-in. I do enjoy it quite a lot. The fact that it's like the Avengers turned into like a national threat. I think it's a cool way for them to, without doing like hero registration.
Mm-hmm.
It was a different way. They instead like kind of created a national like emergency or like a national question that needed to be answered.
Mm-hmm.
And like they kind of aren't a part of that. Who is
Yeah.
Spider-Man? You, sir. um and I think they did it well. Yeah, I think setting up Black Panther like in this
Mm-hmm.
movie was fantastic because like his dad was fantastic in it, like the original Black Panther that
Mm-hmm.
that ended up dying in the explosion. I think
Is his
that
dad T'Chaka?
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
T'Chaka, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like him. You don't get to see him that long. When he dies, that hurt.
Yeah.
Like you don't get to see him for that long in that movie,
Mm-hmm.
just in general. And somehow they still made that hurt quite a bit. Like
Yeah.
seeing the Black Panther lose his dad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's tough. And hard to do just for this kind of movie. I think it was solid. I think it was a solid way to tee up the rivalry between Iron Man and Captain America,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, yeah, even as the viewer, I can't take sides. Like it's hard to take sides with either of them because it's
Mm-hmm.
like Captain America is going to side with his buddy who he thought was literally fucking dead,
Mm-hmm.
and Iron Man wants to know who killed his fucking like
Who killed my mom?
yeah, dude, that's a fucking killer of a line.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not let that dude just laser beam his eyes out?
Um,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, he could. He had the power of the Black Panther. He
So where are
could
you
be.
sitting on this? Because I'm thinking
Oh yeah, sorry. I would put
high
it.
C low B.
Yes, that was exactly what I was gonna say. Will you scroll up a little bit? I don't know what's in B right now.
Just Iron Man 1.
Just Iron Man 1. I would put it below Iron Man 1. I
So
would
would
put
I.
it in
Okay.
B. Yeah.
Because I think
Yeah.
I think it's like a thing that we've touched on a couple times, but it's like it's where you put up a better film against a more fun film. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yes.
Like,
100%.
yeah.
Because that's tough. That's where you're like you are. I mean, a lot of this is comparing apples and oranges, but it's like if we're gonna compare apples and oranges, how ripe is this apple compared to this orange? And
Right.
like that's
Exactly.
that's how I'm gonna rate it. Is like, how juicy is the fruit?
Yeah. Because like Endgame's pretty fucking juicy.
Oh, dude, the amount of I'm gonna be sopping once we get there.
All right.
Uh,
Doctor Strange, which is another kind of like interesting movie because I think it's a good movie, but I don't have like strong feelings towards it.
I did think that Benedict Cumberbatch was a really solid choice for this role.
100%.
And like even initially I was like, really? Initially I was actually kind of pissed because I was like he was just coming off of being Smaug the Destroyer, and like had a lot of other roles like in that time where it was like, oh,
Sherlock,
by the way,
everything. Yeah.
yeah, yep, he was like a really big actor
Oh
during this
yeah.
time. So I think being the like the hipster side of me, the Marvel hipster side of me was like, get this like A-list actor who's been in everything out of here. Like he's not going to deliver. And like once I started seeing pictures of him, I was like, okay, all right,
Yeah.
this dude can do
This
it.
dude fucks.
This dude fucks, yeah. And
Ryan
so
said
I
no mention of Bucky for the Civil War discussion.
well, I did the only mention of Bucky just being that like I guess my mention of Bucky was just in regards to Captain America, like
Hmm.
Bucky being a very believable reason for Captain America to be against Iron Man.
Hmm.
I guess it wasn't like a spotlight on Bucky itself, because Bucky got a lot more of a spotlight in um oh God, what is it? Winter Soldier, or at least like that. I think that was
Hmm.
it's a different Bucky. This Bucky was like the confused, like I'm not a bad guy Bucky, um, but he's not. I mean, when you got Black Panther, when you got Spider Man, when you're like having them all fight together, I'm not thinking about the guy that was in like I'm not thinking about the metal arm
Dude,
guy.
okay, I will say because I didn't even remember this part. The final fight between Cap, Bucky, and Iron Man.
That's really
That's
good.
dope as shit. How
That's
many
really good.
different layers in that fight scene are cool, and the fact that Iron Man just chest blasts off Bucky's arm is pretty dope. Like,
Yeah, yeah, dude, that's like
because
metal as fuck.
I remember watching that Civil War trailer because the second trailer I think was the one with Spider Man at the end, and it's like, damn, they should have just not said anything. Like, I know money,
Dude.
money, but
Ooh.
the end of the first trailer, I remember it was that like fight scene where they're all fighting, and he's like gripping his arc reactor chest, like trying to rip it out with his metal arm. Pretty dope.
That's right. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. But
I feel good
anyways,
about that.
Doctor Strange. Sorry, that was a big tangent. Back to Civil War.
Oh,
Um,
that's right.
I think Doctor Strange. I don't have a lot to say about this movie. I think the effects are dope. I think Mads Mikkelsen is he's kind of like a Jeff Bridges, where it's like he was given a role that didn't have much, but I think he elevates it to enough of a point where it's fine. It's still not like top tier, but I love him as an actor, and I think he does such a good job that like
Yeah.
he elevates it where it's like, okay, it's fine. Like he's a fun villain, enough of a villain. Um, I think Doctor Strange, the thing I remember most about this movie is the final fight, quote unquote, which is just him bargaining with Dormammu, which I think is probably one of the best endings of any MCU movie because it subverts all expectation because it's like it's not some big CGI fight, although they have that in the movie and shit, but like this whole thing where he's just using logic and the time stone together, like fucking excellent, dude. Like
Right.
I'm like laughing at how much fun I'm having with this final scene, and it's not a fight. Like that says so much about how that is, you know.
I loved how much we got to see him die during that too. Like, it's not like a really quick, like 1 year later, like kind
Hmm.
of deal where it's like, no, we got to see Doctor Strange like get obliterated a
Yeah,
handful of times during that.
right.
I agree. I think this one just I've come to Dormammu. I've come to bargain. I think I would probably put it like either high in my bottom half or low in my top half. In terms of like a tier listing, because I'm kind of right there with you. I think it is where it's a solid origin story, well casted. CGI is incredible.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
it's one of the best CGI movies in the whole
I
MCU.
I think they're like it's one of the ones where it's like, man, they could have done this very wrong, like
Hmm.
kind of deal. Like
Oh yeah.
this character has a lot of nuance to him,
Hmm.
just in general, and I feel like they nailed a lot of that
Well,
nuance.
like, and also too, just how important he is to the overall like universe. It's like this dude is literally like one of the top like defenders of the planet and the like our
Yeah,
existence essentially. So it's like they had to nail this because he's going to be an important figure moving forward. You know.
exactly. And yeah, I think really it's just that it kind of suffers from the same thing that like a lot of the first movies have, except for Guardians of the Galaxy, where it's like it just doesn't necessarily have a huge moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's all a good movie. I wouldn't consider the movie a great movie, like a
Right.
great standalone movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a solid introduction movie. So
Right.
like, so yeah, I don't know.
It's
I mean,
like,
personally, I'd put it above Captain America, but I'm
hey, you
honestly
know what?
not mad at
Honestly,
it.
I would be down. I can do that. Like, if this is a list of us combining both, and if I'm pushing for Captain America, then I can like levy it a bit.
Yeah,
I
I don't
will
even know.
say,
Like, would you put it above Iron Man 3? That's kind of an
yeah,
open
I
question. I'm
would.
not sure if I would. Yeah, yeah.
I think I would
I think I
only
would.
because I think Iron Man 3 doesn't stick the landing as much as I like a lot of it. Whereas, and I think Doctor Strange is like the first episode of a TV series where I'm like, I'm going to watch the rest of the season because it has
It's
promise.
it's all like pretty solid as
Yeah,
opposed to having like the dips and the peaks.
right, exactly.
Oh yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. So here's one I'm very high on. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, a lot of
Oh yeah.
people think it's very samey to the first one. I
Hmm.
think it has some of the best cinematography in the entire MCU. The
Hmm.
soundtrack is just as good, if not better, than Volume 1. I think some of the performances are even better. And like how much this series is about family. Like the first
Hmm.
movie is about your mom, second movie is about your dad, and how much the movie is about found family. I really like how much this movie focuses on that even more. Like it
Hmm.
really gets into the nitty gritty because the first movie is them getting over their differences, and the second movie is them getting over themselves and like learning to kind of coexist. And
Right,
I
right.
really like how much they dig into that. Like it has some of my favorite scenes in the entire phase 3 where like when you first meet Mantis and she's talking to Drax about his family and she puts his hand to feel his emotions and like he's completely just stoic and she's literally losing her fucking shit crying because like it's so much sadness that he carries with him. Like it's little
Right.
character moments that this movie has a lot of that I love. I think even
Mhm.
earlier today, or maybe it was yesterday, I was telling you that like one of my favorite scenes is when Rocket Raccoon and Star-Lord get into an argument and separate, and they play "The Chain" by Fleetwood Mac as they get away from each
Yeah,
other.
yeah.
Like, there's so much of that where it's just like the movie has such a good flow and identity to itself. I do know the complaints about it being like having a very similar vibe, but yeah, I love this movie.
Family. We're talking about family.
Dom
Um,
Toronto.
so I actually did just look this one up on my letterbox because this is one where I was like, I really wanted to know where I put it.
Yeah.
And in there I have it above Iron Man and below Civil War. Just I
Oh.
wanted to know where my frame of reference was. Because I agree with you. I think the only thing that I don't necessarily love about this movie
Mm-hmm.
is the ending is for some reason pretty forgettable to me. Like just in general, I think I didn't dislike, but I didn't love the main bad guy. I didn't love Ego.
Oh, Ego. Yeah.
Like I don't there was something about him that didn't make me believe him at the beginning. Like,
Okay.
and if I'm not gonna believe the guy that you're trying to push as being his actual dad,
Mm-hmm.
like in the beginning as being a guy, I mean, I know everyone else was kind of like iffy about him too, like the rest of the team was, and
Mm-hmm.
so like, yeah, it's fine if I do, but like, I don't know. Even from the beginning, I was just like, it doesn't seem like this is like a cool guy.
Yeah, like yeah, like it's not really hiding it too well.
It seems
Um,
pretty obvious that there's
yeah.
something going on here, which so in terms of a sci-fi movie, I think that's a ding against it
Mm,
because it makes it less of a good sci-fi movie than like like the first Guardians of the Galaxy.
right.
But I agree entirely with the fact that I think the presentation, this, I mean, it's a lot of what the first Guardians Galaxy had, where it's like none of the movie, like just looking at this list right now, none of the movies below it have the cinematography or the CGI or like some of the settings
The
that are
soundtrack, like that's
the
just an
soundtrack.
infinite benefit.
Yeah, yeah. So I would put it right there, right
Yeah,
under
no,
Civil
same,
War, probably
absolutely.
above Avengers.
Because I think too, like with the first Guardians being so good, it's like, how can you follow that up? It's like you
Mhm.
you literally debut with your like definitive album. How do you come out with a follow up? Like, and they
Right,
did such a good job at almost being as good, like not quite
right.
being there, but oh, here we go, baby. Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Woo! I mean, you could just go ahead and slap that boy either in A or in Stan.
I'm gonna put it in A.
That's fair. That's fair. You can put it above. I on it. Like I am not gonna be. You should place them in all, and like you can place the Spider-Man and all like fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. If it's gonna go in A, it's definitely gonna go above Captain
I
America. 'Cause,
think
like, yeah.
that is a good placement for it. I mean, you and I love Spider-Man, so this is a very easy clap. Like,
Mhm.
this is such a good Spider-Man story too, because I'm on the other end where like some people online think like it's not a great Spider-Man story. I'm like it is because like it takes that complaint of him being Iron Man Jr. and like strips all of that away. You know,
Mhm.
like that's basically
Um,
half this movie.
and just filmography wise, like the fact that their inspiration is John Hughes for like
Hmm.
the setup and kind of the net like how they're navigating the narrative
Right.
of this movie and like the ones after it is like yeah it's a teenage drama, so it's so perfect. The best thing that the MCU could have ever done was making Spider-Man a kid.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that's because that was the whole thing. 1973, motherfucking Spider-Man, the first teenager superhero. Before that, all the superheroes, or super people that were teenagers were sidekicks. So this is
Right.
the first one that's like a kid, but not a sidekick. And
Right.
so it's just fun to have that. It's just so good. And
Well,
fucking,
like
the
you're
Vulture, dude.
yeah,
Like
Vulture's awesome in this movie. It made me a fan of that character, which I thought was a pretty fucking lame villain, you know?
so good.
Um,
I think I think this is the same for all the Spider-Man villains, but they nail the like vulture look without being so overt about it.
mhm.
Like the like Air Force jacket with the like
The
really
fur, yeah.
yeah, the fur that kind of feels buggy and
Yeah.
dude, so good.
Oh yeah,
So
man.
good.
Yeah, no, I love
Um
that movie. It even has one of the best Spider-Man scenes, which is when the rubble's all on top of him, and he's like literally staring into the puddle, seeing himself, and he's like crying because he's like he needs help, and he's like, I am the help. I'm the person here. Like I'm Spider-Man. Like that is literally his moment, and it's so well done. It's so good.
And I've been watching the Variant Comics YouTube channel, which
Yep.
everyone should watch that YouTube channel. It's
Oh
pretty
yeah, so
fantastic.
good.
They go over some Spider-Man storylines, and that moment is literally like almost shot for shot from a comic series, like
Hmm.
a comic line where he's like lifting that rubble, which is such a great tie-in. Like
Hmm.
that's such a good tie-in for this character.
The only thing I don't like about this movie, honestly, is the final, like the very final, like plane scene is a little messy. Like it's cool, but like it doesn't quite stick, I think, what it was going for. It's not as exhilarating as some finales. I think it
Hmm.
kind of it's a fun ending because there's a lot of like storyline implications of
Hmm.
like Peter saving the Vulture and shit like that, and like him knowing his identity fully and like leaving him alive, the yada yada.
Hmm.
But like the plane crashing and like that final fight, it doesn't really have a lot of stuff going on. Like you were saying about Captain America, like that last fight is a little meh, whereas in a lot of the rest of the movie actually had a lot of fun action scenes.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's a point that you bring up pretty often, but like you actually get to see a superhero save people
Mm-hmm.
in this one pretty frequently, which is like low key doesn't happen a whole lot in like a lot of the MCU movies, just in
Yeah,
general.
dude, it has
Is
some of
that
my favorite the
yeah.
establishing New York shots at the beginning where he's like giving a lady directions, he like gets somebody's bike, like just shit like that where it's like I love
It's
those.
Spider-Man,
Yeah.
do a flip.
Yeah, dude. Yeah,
It's
no.
so
It's
good.
great. All right.
Uh,
Oh, we have another banger. Thor Ragnarok is next.
dude, it's tough. It's
I'm
tough
just gonna
because
go
like
ahead and slot this in A, and we'll just figure out where in A it sits. Cause like
yeah.
Ragnarok is almost an S tier. It has a lot going on, and it
Hmm.
almost is perfect for me. But
Yeah.
because it literally like I couldn't have given a shit about Thor. It had so many things going against it, and not only did it make Thor now one of my more favorite aspects of the entire universe, like it's now
Hmm.
one of the most entertaining movies. It's one of the best Hulk appearances.
Yeah. Hands
Hela is
down.
another kind of just boring, like it's evil Thor, but in the best way. Like she's actually super menacing. Like they allow her to kill off like half of his friends and then also take
Right.
over Asgard like immediately.
Yep.
He loses an eye. Like, there's so many cool moments in this movie, and not only that, it's fucking hilarious.
It's
Like,
hilarious.
yeah.
This is the first one you really get like really good Thor moments. So starting a Tessa Thompson fan club, BRB,
Yeah,
because
she's
she was
great in
great
this.
too.
Yeah.
Valkyrie, like the introduction of Valkyrie, I kind of like what you were saying before about like some of the best introductions to characters are the way that they did like the Black Panthers and the Spider-Mans, and this is kind of, you know, it Valkyrie is not a huge name, but it is kind of in the same vein, a great way to introduce a character that's just
Hmm.
kind of a part of someone else's story alongside that just kind of like ends up tagging along.
Right.
um Dude, it's tough because like I part of me wants to say it is an S tier for the sake that this is Thor and Hulk's S tier movie.
Yeah.
Is it S tier above these other ones? Like I mean I don't you're not gonna find me putting many above any of the Spider-Mans, but
Right.
like just for the sake of like what it is, I don't
Because,
know. I
like,
think it's probably good where it is. I would maybe put it above Winter Soldier.
see,
Personally.
I'm torn because I love both of them and I can do
Yeah.
either way, but I feel like our combined list, Thor Ragnarok would be above. Because Cap stock is always high with me. So, like,
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
fine
Yeah.
with this.
And I could go either way. Also,
Also,
like
just like another little thing, the poster is fucking top tier. Like, it's
yeah, no,
great.
there's that movie doesn't miss. Like
Yeah.
the from the comedy to the action to the setting, I feel like this is another movie that like touches Guardians of the Galaxy in terms of the not necessarily film wise, like in terms of shot settings, because it's a pretty fast movie,
Mm-hmm.
so you don't necessarily get a lot of establishing shots the way that Guardians of the Galaxy does.
Mm-hmm.
But it has a lot. It's a very like awesome. Like I'm in awe a lot when I'm watching that movie. And
The design of the sci-fi world, the more like arena world, is so cool because usually
yeah,
a lot of times those designs are pretty lame, but they really nailed a kind of grimy but futuristic like mix
a
that Star
futuristic
Wars
Mad
really nailed.
Max or
Yeah.
the Thunderdome. You know,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
it's a civilization that idolizes and makes gods of the people that are at the top of the totem pole for the ring.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a good placement for it.
Yeah.
Next we got Black Panther.
Yeah, I would I haven't seen this movie for a while. It has been a
Same.
while since I've seen this movie, so I feel like I'm not going to give it a super fair assessment just in general.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think it's low on my list. I
No,
think it is still pretty high
it's
because
high on my
for it
list.
being its own movie, um like I and like even before getting too into it, I would probably put it high B or low A.
Okay.
Um just in terms of
I
what
think
it
I
gets
would
put
do
up against.
B, but we'll keep talking.
Yeah, yeah, and I would be fine with that
Yeah.
because I did like Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger. I think he was pretty
I loved
solid.
him as Killmonger.
Um, I thought it was pretty cool what they did with T'Challa. Just in general, stripping him of the Black Panther,
Hmm.
and getting it back. The final fight scene was pretty awesome as well between the two of them.
Hmm.
It does have pretty rough CGI moments,
The
and I
last
only know
fight is
that.
the worst CGI ever. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I only know that because of Corridor
Yep,
Crew, so
yep.
like I can't give it that high of a rating because like if the baseline is all the Marvel movies are fucking awesome, then I can't say that this is like a great Marvel movie if it like literally an entire act of the movie was like half-assed.
Right.
And that's not to say that it was half-assed like combat wise, because it wasn't. Like it slapped. Like
It's a
it
cool
was all
fight,
cool.
but it's bad CGI. Like, and that's
Not
like the thing,
yeah.
like the original Daredevil Batman or Ben Affleck movie when he like kicks Bullseye off of the motorcycle. That's
Yeah.
badass, but the CG is terrible, so it drains it. It's the same
Yeah.
concept.
Um
Killmonger, I think, is one of the better villains in the entire MCU, just in terms of having a clear path that like he follows the entire movie, that they give you enough motivation for where it feels like he actually is like a person with motivations and not just I'm evil and I'm an evil version of you. Like it's one of the better like I'm evil Black Panther or I'm evil Iron Man or I'm evil Captain America, you know, like that this
Right.
like whole thing is
Yep.
plagued with. Um
Yep.
I really like how much they flesh out Wakanda and make it does feel like this really realized world, and I do love
Yep.
that. I think it's a good movie with great production.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, it's just Andy Serkis coming back in this one from the last time we see him is Age of Ultron when he loses his arm. So this is
Hmm.
the first time we see him with the crazy arm,
Hmm.
which was pretty awesome as well.
He also dies in this movie.
He also dies in this
Yeah.
movie. Yeah, that dude kills him. I just solid. I
Yeah.
like it was just a solid movie, and I will say like the cultural importance of this movie
Oh
was
yeah.
also pretty important at the time. So like,
Hmm. One of my favorite, I think it was either a TikTok or a Vine at the time, but it was like three black guys standing outside the movie poster just in awe of it. And they're just like, is this what white people feel like all the time?
yeah, seriously though. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
So,
dude. R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman.
oh, absolutely. And that's like, honestly, that was something too where he was such an important figurehead of all of that, you know, like that losing him is like Black Panther 2 is going to be a very interesting movie, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, I want to put it in the B tier, and it could honestly go anywhere in the B tier for me.
I'd just leave it at the end.
I
Leave it
think
at the
that
end
feels right for
because
me.
yeah, and like I would maybe put it above Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2,
Hmm.
but at the same time, I don't think it deserves it almost purely for the CGI at the end, you
Yeah.
know. I should be slapped in the face if I am saying that Black Panther's a better looking movie than Guardians of the Galaxy 2. You know,
Hmm.
that's just not true. I
Right.
think that Black Panther has a lot more cultural significance than probably everything in category
Right.
B.
Well, it's
Just
like,
in
and we'll get to the movie pretty quick here, but Captain Marvel, it's like, it's not by any means, I think, the best MCU movie. It has a lot of cultural significance just in terms of like the most prominent, like female led superhero movie, you know?
Right.
Um, anyways. So yeah, I think it's a good spot for Black Panther. Now we have one that I would actually like to nominate up to Stan Lee, which is Infinity War.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think Infinity War is the peak of spectacle and fun with some of the most
Hmm.
tragic moments in the entire franchise all mixed into one, and they stick the landing. It has a
Yeah.
hero's journey, but it's from the villain's standpoint, and that's like so well done in this movie.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
I
No,
don't know where you would
I,
want to put it, but
that'd be fine with me. Put it at
okay.
the bottom with Stanley.
Yeah, for sure. I can watch Infinity War, and like that's like something I find value out of it too, is it's like I like to watch movies a lot, like over and over again, rewatch them. I can watch Spider-Man Homecoming again. I can watch Ragnarok, Guardians, Avengers Infinity War multiple times. Like with a
Hmm.
lot of these other movies, like the first Avengers, it's hard for me to want to watch that. Infinity War, I
Yeah.
know I'm going to
Right.
have a fun time. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
such a great
But I think
movie.
my only thing that I don't like about Infinity War, or at least like the thing that prevents me from watching it a lot, is that it is a lot of different storylines going on at once.
Right.
Which is like you look down, you look up, and you're looking at a new group of three people trying to do the same thing that
Hmm.
like three other groups of three people are trying to do at that same moment, and like that kind of feels a little Brady Bunchy
Hmm.
at times, where not necessarily in a bad way, like they're all working towards doing the same thing. Um, it definitely has one of the coolest beginnings. Like I love the start and the end of this movie are like some of my favorites.
Hmm.
The because I love Tony Stark meeting Doctor Strange.
Oh
That's
yeah.
like that's definitely one of my favorite parts. And then just I mean, it's got my boy. It's got I mean, gonna
Hmm.
be hard pressed to see a Spider-Man appearance going below A for me, just in
And he
general.
fucking dies in this one
He dies in this one, which was
and
pretty hard.
literally made me tear up.
It is pretty heartbreaking, honestly.
Yeah.
But you also get really cool, like this is because this is post Homecoming.
Yep.
So he's a bit more realized as Spider-Man, and you can definitely see that in the way that he moves. I'm
Hmm.
gonna talk about Spider-Man now. Because like even just the introduction of like Tony Stark's about to get blasted by this huge mallet, and it's just like it stops, and it's just like Spider-Man's head peeks out, and it's just like, "Hey, Mr. Stark,
Yeah.
what we got going
Exactly.
on?"
Yep.
Like, and it's just like, oh, it's so good
Hmm.
when he like redirects the taxi to like throw it back. It's
Yeah.
like this is like a strong, like well-versed Spider-Man that's fun to watch
And
fight. Like,
yeah. And like I think the movie overall has some of the best action in any MCU movie, bar none. Like, not
yeah.
only do you have cool, like, just like you have like your Lord of the Rings huge ass fight, you know, like the
Hmm.
big battle of the armies, but you also
Yeah.
get probably the best fight scene in the entire MCU, which is Thanos versus Doctor Strange. Like, that fight scene
Oh
was
yeah.
insane. Like,
Yep.
literally like bent the like mirror dimension to like take in a blast from the like that shit is like literally I didn't even know I wanted that, and now I want it all the time, you know.
Yep. Yep.
I think it's the best Doctor Strange movie. Like,
I agree with that.
he
I agree with that.
he really shines in this movie where it
He
was
made it
like,
happen.
yeah. So no, I love this movie. I think it's yeah, I could go on forever about this movie because it even has the fucking Thor, like when Thor comes into Wakanda, like that
What
is like
don't you like about
iconic.
it?
What?
Give me something you don't like about it.
What don't I like about it? I mean, it's the same thing that all these Avengers movies, any video game really has. It's just, you know, you have so many of the mindless drone enemies that they fight endlessly, and it takes away some of the tension, you know? I will say
Right.
these things being more like ravenous beasts that are literally just used to, like, you know, just completely just bowl over, like, worlds. Like, that
We've
is
got
more.
blood to spare.
What's that?
We've got blood to spare.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
where that line comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's nice that it's not robots.
for
You know,
sure. And that's another thing,
the
too.
last two Avengers movies were
Oh,
robots.
I think where Age of Ultron made, so this is a huge complaint I have about this movie, but like it's minor enough where it doesn't really bother me too much.
Yeah.
But where Age of Ultron set up Vision and Scarlet Witch to be really cool, I think Infinity War immediately pegged them back down.
Yes.
Because
I
they
agree.
got a little bit like kind of room in Civil War, not too much. And then in this movie, it's like, okay, they're in love, and now Vision suddenly is just a fucking bitch, dude. Like,
Yeah.
he
Right.
gets bodied in this movie several
Yeah,
times.
he gets stabbed. That's like one of the first times I jumped in like a Marvel movie
Yeah,
was when he gets stabbed literally out of nowhere and like picked up stabbed,
yeah,
not even just like normal stabbed.
right, yeah. So I think what they did for those characters was meh, but it's like what I think this movie does so well is it has a really good pace for how frantic it is, and it's
Yeah, I agree with
able
that.
where like this and Endgame are very spectacle heavy. Because like my main critique about No Way Home jumping way forward is that like I love that movie. It's a bit messy, you know, but like Infinity War is pretty tight, you know.
Pretty right. It's
Yeah,
all leading somewhere very definitive.
right, exactly. So like that's where it's like it has an identity that it knows, and I think the direction that the Russo brothers had for it was so realized and like almost like flawlessly done for what it needed to be, you know.
Oh, I'm remembering one thing that, and I don't know if this is a huge complaint for me, but there's like a plot hole that was pointed out to me that's just like an annoying one. It's still believable, but when they bring Vision back to Wakanda and the sisters like, oh, you guys didn't think to do this, and Bruce Banner and Tony Stark are like, what? No, we didn't. It's like, no, like no, like no.
Yeah,
They're like smartest people in the world. That's like
right.
scene doesn't happen. Like
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's like a huge plot hole. Like this little girl from like a technologically advanced place. These dudes were flying ships earlier, like alien spaceships, and like you're telling me that they like overlooked something that's like organically, like they overlooked something that's like physically organically like possible.
Hmm.
It's like that. No, that like absolutely would not have happened.
Um, God, it's so weird that Ant-Man and the Wasp came out after this movie. That's such a weird movie to come off of. Um,
So it goes the same way as honestly the first one for me. It's such a
I would honestly put it in the E tier. I think it is
that's
where
good. Yeah,
Thor
I
the
like it.
Dark World I know is a bad movie and I think it's
Yep.
useless. I don't know what Ant-Man and the Wasp is for other than to just introduce the Wasp
The
and to
van.
just show that they all got snapped. Like that's literally like what it is.
It's just to set up the like end of Endgame of
Right.
like, oh, we don't have a teleporter, and then Paul Rudd's like, I do.
Yeah.
Do, 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 do.
Cuz like I've watched this movie and it's not bad, but I think what's worse than a bad movie is a pointless movie.
Yeah,
You
right. The point
know?
of art is to elicit a reaction. So the
Right.
worst thing that art can be is nothing.
Because at least Thor the Dark World gets its own tier of just making me mad at how stupid it is, you know? But like
That is
this,
very true.
yeah. Yeah, I would put that there. I don't even think we need to go over much of it because it's like the
No.
villain is forgettable. Lawrence Fishburne is in it.
Yep.
It does a Marvel thing that I get very tired of, which is like they explain things in sciencey terms of like putting quantum and everything.
Hmm.
But then they go
Yeah,
around and
right.
then they critique themselves within the movie. Oh, we're just putting quantum in front of everything. Fuck you. No, you can't
Right.
critique your own movie. Uh,
Right.
anyways, we can just move on to Captain Marvel
Yeah.
because I think it's a more interesting one to discuss because it's not a bad movie. I think a lot of people shit on this movie, and I think it's a fine movie, but it's not great.
Yeah, I don't like Brie Larson.
That's kind of my whole point with it too. Where like
Yeah.
I think the idea of the movie is kind of fun, but it doesn't have energy to it. You know?
Yeah. She feels too flat as a character.
Right.
Like where which is a bummer. Like I don't know why they got to do this to the female characters of this fucking like series
Yeah.
where they just make them such goddamn fucking duds.
Yeah.
Like make them cooler than this.
Because it's
Like
like this is literally like I think it's like the sixth highest grossing movie of all time. Like it's
really.
in yeah, I think like 7 of the top 10 are now Marvel movies.
I would put it there.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm down with that.
I think
I would put it
it,
above Thor 1.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. That's fair. I'd put it above Thor. I probably enjoyed it more than
Yeah,
Thor.
yeah, yeah.
But I don't think it's a better movie than Hulk.
No, no, no. I totally agree because it's another one of
Yeah.
those movies I'm never gonna go back to. You know, like
Yeah.
it,
It
it,
does
it
consistently stay in my bottom half.
yeah,
And like it's kind of it's I don't know why they because this is the first time they did this, but they've done it since with Black Widow, another female led character, where it's like they didn't make this movie important.
right,
This movie was
exactly,
not important.
right.
There was no reason to see this movie, only if you wanted some context to who Captain Marvel was
Of
when
who's
she
gonna
was gonna.
fly through the spaceship in the next movie.
Right. Yeah. So like, it wasn't even that big of a payoff when you did
No,
find out who she was, because you were like, hold on, they had a whole movie with her, and she didn't do that
right.
during any of that movie.
Yeah.
She had a whole fight scene where like she was actually fighting people in that movie and
Hmm.
didn't just fly through a bunch of people.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Um, yeah, no, and it's like it's not that it's a good movie, it's that it's a bad movie and it should stay in the D tier and we should move on.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Now we got to move on to another sexy movie, which is Endgame.
Yeah, see, this is the one that like when I because I've said it now that we're like kind of getting close to the end
Uh-huh.
of like the list is like this is an S tier movie. This
Oops.
is like this movie has the moment. This movie has the
Yeah,
moment that the entire series has
built
been leading
to. Yeah.
towards. Literally no, and I will say this. I mean, I know Spider-Man's in it, so it's like it's
Uh-huh.
not a Spider-Man movie, but like this movie has the moment of all MCU, which
Yeah.
is the Avengers Assemble. Like
Hmm.
For me, there is no single scene in the MCU that is more powerful than when everyone's coming back through the portals
Oh yeah.
and like right before they go.
Oh yeah.
Like they are down and out. They've tried everything and
Mm-hmm.
like you're kind of feeling it with them. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
what the fuck could happen? And
Right.
dude, like, I mean, I would have straight up bawled just from like not even like joy or sadness, but like from sheer awesomeness. Like
Mm-hmm.
crying like a baby because like fucking holy shit. Like
Mm-hmm.
we were like down in the ditches. Like
Right.
everything was lost. The entire movie got put down the drain. Like everything that they set out to do got fucked.
Yeah.
Like handful of people died. Those people aren't coming back. Because they didn't die during like because of the snap. They died
Mm-hmm.
after that. Like oh god, dude. I think that one is like will always be probably at the very top for me.
At the very
I mean
top.
yeah, I mean just personally.
Yeah.
I put it above Infinity War. I put it
See,
above Infinity War 1,000 times.
I would 1,000 times put Infinity War over Endgame, but my only thing is they're like companion pieces. I feel like you need one with the other. Where Infinity War starts off in this super high roller coaster ride and then kind of goes down this more somber route. Endgame starts off the somber route and then turns into the roller coaster ride. And
Yeah.
so it's like you have more feelings of elation coming out of Endgame because you have all those exciting moments, but like the beginning of the
Yep.
movie is like a little slow and it's a fucking long movie too.
Hmm.
Like because like once you kind of blow your load after like the like Avengers Assemble scene and everything, there's so much like loose ends to tie up. But the thing is like they do such a good job of still making you care about the loose ends because like it's a testament to a movie that how good it is when it's
Hmm.
3.5 hours long and like it ends and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I wasn't like, holy shit, that was long.
And I think the way that they ended a lot of the characters in Endgame was just top tier. I
Hmm.
like the way that they finished the series is incredible to
Yeah,
the point where I don't think the way that they started Infinity War could touch how good the ending was,
right.
if that makes sense.
No, for sure. So like I think so I put Endgame below Guardians and I want to run this by you. So my thing is this. Endgame is Guardians is the movie anyone could watch. Anyone can watch and
Yes.
enjoy that movie.
It's a good movie.
Endgame is the movie that has the best payoff because you have to watch every other movie to get
So what?
every payoff. So it's like that's the only reason where I would put Guardians above because I think Guardians is a great movie because it fully stands on its own, whereas in Endgame is a thing unlike anything else because it has to rely on everything else.
Yeah.
Like
I agree with that. I agree with that. I can definitely be cool with that.
yeah, cool.
It's definitely not what mine is, but that's like a lot more of a biased list, you know?
No, I mean, like our letterbox list, like there are, like we knew there was going to be a handful of movies where we're
Right.
just not going to see eye to eye on, But
Yep.
it's like at least that it's like, well, is it number one or two, like.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, so this is one that this has been a hot topic in our place lately, but Far From Home,
Yes,
it's
yes. I
dropped
think
a
this
bit.
is
I think this is
it.
B tier.
Scroll up if you could, because I don't agree, but I also agree.
Okay,
I would put it at the bottom of A.
bottom of A.
Yeah, you can put
Well,
it
like
at
we'll discuss. We'll discuss.
oh just because it's Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Like I said, I don't think there's a Spider-Man movie that's gonna go below an A for me just in general. And
yeah,
like
yeah.
I'll fight for it. I'll fight for it because it's my boy.
Hmm.
I think that this is the worst Spider-Man movie that they've come out with, and actually I even think less about it now during this conversation because of some of the stuff we've talked about.
Hmm.
Because him in Infinity War and Endgame felt like a lot more of a confident Spider-Man than in this movie, which
Yeah.
feels wrong to a
Hmm.
degree.
Hmm.
And I've not really like thought about that until now. Just in
Hmm.
terms of like because I mean a lot of my side of like where I rank things is definitely like their abilities, their prowess, how good the fights are,
Mm-hmm.
like, their progression and stuff. So it's like, yeah, Spider-Man kind of took a dip on this movie where, like, I know he's an illusionist, but I don't know if he's doing all that stuff in Infinity War and Endgame. Like, how are we doing the fourth Spider-Man appearance and like his spider sense isn't like better than okay?
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
so that's something that's a little
It
annoying.
is the Spider-Sense movie though, which is fun.
It is,
Like as
yes,
much as I
absolutely.
completely agree with you on that.
No, because I also, and this moves on a little bit more, but like, it you see him gain. I do love. God damn, I love Spider-Man. You see him gain his like get a lot better at his abilities. Where like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, this is the Spider-Sense movie. He can't tell that Nick Fury's not Nick Fury, which is
Right.
like, yeah, his Spider-Sense is probably fucking out of whack if he can't. There's a lot of stuff that he just doesn't pick up on in this movie, which definitely plays off of that.
Yeah. Um, I think it has one of the best villains in the MCU. I think Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio is fucking awesome, and that's why it elevates it so much for me.
Hmm.
I think it does take a while for it to get going,
Yeah.
but once it does, it's awesome. Like I think it's a little unbalanced in that way. So it's on like I could be convinced to put it in low A, but I would also put it the highest B as well.
Yeah.
Just because like it's really good, but I think it does have just a couple missteps where it's like it
Yeah.
could have been great.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Homecoming is like a great film top to bottom. Like Far From Home is it builds and then it gets great.
Yep. Because I mean, some of my favorite parts are like the CGI illusion moments
Oh god,
where,
dude, of
yeah,
course.
so good. So, and I mean, even at the end where he's like going through the hallway and like relying just on the Peter Tingle and
Mm-hmm.
like, dude, that's like the way that he fights those droids or like the whatever the drones,
Oh yeah.
um, and is like using them to kill each other and
Mm-hmm.
like flipping through the hallway and shit, just closing his eyes and going, the going full Jedi moment is
Yep.
like
Oh
delicious.
yeah,
But
dude.
yeah, no, I think this is the Spider-Man movie where you could kind of say the most bad stuff about just in
Yeah.
general. But no, I mean it's Jake Gyllenhaal's fantastic. Like it all slaps. I agree with. I mean I could do either low A or high B. Because because Endgame is above Infinity War, I would be fine with a high B.
Let's keep it in A just because it looks nice now because we have an
Okay.
even amount and we'll and I feel like we'll do a last one over and we'll filter some because I do
Yeah.
think I might bump Thor down to E. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
all
That is
right.
true. Well, I mean, to be fair, I'm looking at the ones that we have left, and I'm not necessarily worried about
Yeah.
filling out E.
Yeah, we'll get some E's in there. All right, so the TV shows were included in this list. I figure we'll just throw them in whatever kind of like they don't have to be compared to the movies necessarily, but throw them in like B,
No, I'm
C.
down. I'm down because I haven't done this. I
Okay,
haven't
cool. And I have
compared.
so
I have the shows have stayed off my lists, so
yeah.
this is the first time I'm like kind of pitting them against
And
each other in
these
general.
are all in order of release. So this is all in order and release that still
Mhm.
applies here. So we are now that was the end of phase 3. We are officially in phase 4 now.
Yep.
So
So WandaVision.
WandaVision. Okay. So I'll kick this one off. WandaVision was one where I was like, I'm not excited for it, but I think it could be the best thing they do because like they have so much room they could explore with these two characters that like I think that they could do incredible things. Now, what
Hmm.
I thought about that and what actually happened is very different because where the first 3 or 4 episodes really was like, this is cool, like you kind of know what's going on, you don't, and it's like, what the fuck is happening? It's the most abstract thing they've done in the MCU, and that is the best compliment I can give to it because what it doesn't do
Agreed.
well it makes up for in the fact that it's so interesting.
Yeah.
And the performances are fantastic. Like both leads do an incredible job with the hokiness of the sitcoms as well as the serious moments. Like they both have great moments in the show. But I
Hmm.
think it is the most unbalanced start to a phase I've ever seen because
Yeah.
it literally doesn't establish anything. It does great character work for them, but I don't know. I came out of it being like, okay, she's stronger now, but we're kind of straight where we left off, you know?
Right, right. Which I guess the next movie is going to be what picks up after WandaVision is
Yeah.
going to be the
Doctor
next Doctor
Strange.
Strange movie.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. I think you nailed it, nail on the head with it being the best compliment you could give it is that it's like the least Marvel property in terms of how predictable it is. It is like those moments where you're like, Vision starts talking over the end credits, and you're like, you kind of get that sense of being uncomfortable that a lot of the movies don't toy with. And I also think this is a byproduct of it being like, now this isn't comparing apples to oranges. This is like comparing apples to a TV show. Like there are like such different things because you do get so much more time with these characters. So I think where some movies have peaks and valleys, I think the peaks are just as plentiful as in a movie, but I think the valleys are a lot deeper in the TV shows just in general because of how much time you can spend in them. Not entirely in a bad way, because I think that also makes the peaks higher in a way, but not like yes and no. They can't be as high as some of the movies because it's not a movie. They don't have the same production behind it.
Right.
But yeah, I got oh God.
Because like
Where would you put it?
I don't. It's almost like an Ant-Man situation where it's like I don't hate it because I do find value in the fact that it's fun and like, you know, it has almost like a Doctor Strange ending with the two visions having a logic off. Like I really enjoyed that, you know, like, but
And I think I liked the middle of this show more than I liked the very beginning and the very end.
I like the intrigue for sure. Yeah, like that the show produced.
The very end, the battle between Agatha and Wanda wasn't.
It's pretty forgettable.
Yeah, not that incredible, and kind of felt a little too cliche, just in terms of like a wizard battle in the sky, like just blasting each other. Like the introduction to runes, which was pretty iffy, like in terms of it, like I don't know. It was kind of cool. I like that they went back in time and showed like where the runes came from and showed where Agatha came from. That was cool. And like her like stand there now. Gosh, I only watched through it once, so I'm like trying to remember everything.
But like I don't know if I ever want to watch through it again, you know? Like because the things I would want to watch from it, I can just YouTube it because it's like I would want to watch maybe like the intros again because the intros were fantastic, you know?
Or like I'll just watch the last 3 episodes before I go see the next Doctor Strange movie.
Honestly.
Like just so that I have the setup for Monica Rambeau's character, and I'm assuming Kat Dennings is going to become some kind of metahuman.
I would assume so at this point after
it opens the door for, it was kind of floating around at the time, but it opens the door for her to potentially have an X gene to introduce the X-Men. Whatever large-titted fucking X hero she could be.
Where do we want to put this? One's hard because I don't hate it.
I would put it over Ant-Man. I would maybe put it at the very end of C.
Okay. Yeah.
Like the back end of C.
Yeah.
After Captain America.
I can roll with that. I think that's a solid place for it.
Because I think it's better than Age of Ultron. Just in general. I mean, that's not a hard sell for a lot of people. It's a hard, I'm saying it as a hard sell for me almost more than anything. But I think it is just a better overall product than Avengers Age of Ultron with what they were trying to do and how it turned out.
Right.
Because I will say that, and this is for almost all of the shows, is that the very end, man, dude, when the whole city is being teared down and she's putting her family to sleep, like to bed. Wow, that's
a good moment.
That's like a mean thing.
Very mean, but very like, yeah.
The MCU does some mean stuff to you, but that was like a very impactful moment where like I don't think anything in D gave me a moment like that.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right, Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is another kind of like I liked it, but it wasn't my like I would put it in C tier as well, just because like I think it has some great moments for sure. Like I love the story it tells about a black man trying to take a shield in a current age, where it's like yeah, Steve gave it to me with the best intentions, but he wouldn't understand what I had to deal with. Like, I love how they really, that's why, like, I enjoy the shows having more time. Like, you were talking about the peaks and valleys, and it's like, it is both a help and a hindrance because what you do with that time will determine if your show is good, you know? Because,
Right,
like,
exactly.
Wanda and Vision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, all of them needed more screen time. Like, the fact that these were, like, the first four characters to get, like, TV shows and shit was good, just in terms of, like, they needed this screen time. They
Yeah,
needed as much
right.
of the valley as possible because they got only the peaks. Like,
Yeah.
Sam was basically on your left for 2.5 phases, you know?
Right. Okay, no, I would put it above WandaVision,
Yeah.
under Captain America.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Because I like U.S. Agent's great in it. The guy they got to play it, he does a great job of making you hate him. The Flag Smashers were kind of weird. I'm just not a big fan of that actress who is also in Solo.
Same, same.
Um,
I think that she did a fine job. I think
right.
her character was good. Her character was just a plot device, essentially. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't necessarily feel much for that character, but she is what made Sam's character so good in that show.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had his best monologues against her. Like,
Right.
like his best moments in that movie were responding to her what she thought was just.
Right.
And his best parts in that whole movie were responding to what she thought was just, with like what the new Captain America is like, you really see him coming into being the new Captain America when it's pitted up against her. So
Right.
it's like I didn't love her, but I liked him from that, which
Right.
is really lame. I know what you mean. I wish she was a better character so that
But
those moments probably would have had even more weight.
yeah, I agree with what you were saying though about like showing the ideals that he imposes, because I was like, that's the biggest thing about like Captain America is like what I loved about this series was showcasing. It's like it's not about the fact that Captain America was a super soldier. It's about who he was. You know, like
Right.
it's not about like the U.S. agent him coming in thinking, oh, I need to. I'm a deadly, soldier. Like I'm the best trained. Like I'm perfect for this job. It's like no, that's not the job.
Right, right.
Like you're a symbol. Like you're
Yeah,
not a
and this
weapon.
show, I mean, I personally I would put this one above Captain America, but I know that's not going to happen
Yeah.
because I think this show does that like miles better than Captain America
Mm.
does. I mean, it's for me, it's hard to sell anybody saying that a white dude's pretty awesome in the 40s. That's like, yeah, pretty easy slam dunk. I'm not that impressed.
I love the fight scene between Captain America and the Winter Soldier and Falcon. Like when they just break his fucking arm, like to get the shield off of it. Like pretty
Yeah,
metal.
right. Oh yeah, dude. I wish there was a little bit more of the Dora Milaje. Is that how you say it?
Oh yeah, something like that.
Um, because I feel like they play around with it with Bucky, and like they have those moments where it's going back, kind of touching on his rehabilitation. But like I don't know. This is like the dad in me that's like I want more Rocky training scenes with him in the
Yeah.
dorm a lot, where he's like fighting with them and like
Mm-hmm.
they're kicking his ass. Like
Mm-hmm.
that would be fucking cool because
Um,
it's like yeah, you never mess with them, but like I would love to see more fight scenes with them.
yeah, I did love the scenes with him in there, and I love the scene when they kick his ass, and he's like, "They weren't even super soldiers." Like, I love that line. Like,
Yeah, dude.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Is like that's yeah, that's badass. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Okay, so before we go any further, I would say I'm pretty cool with putting both Captain Marvel and Thor in the ear T.
In the ET.
Ear tier.
All
Yeah.
right, we're gonna do that
E
then.
tier. In whatever order, yeah.
I think
That's
that's a good order
100% okay with me. Yeah, that's 100% okay with me.
because at least
Just
Thor is important to the MCU, where you get the introduction to one of the major players, whereas an Ant-Man and the Wasp is like you do not need to watch that movie. Like
you
if you
don't.
watch the first
It's pointless.
Ant-Man, it already teases at the end that she's gonna be Wasp. So it's like,
Yep. Yep.
yeah. So no, I would do that.
Well,
Yeah, we got Loki next. I think Loki is probably the best Disney Plus show they've done so far.
I think so.
Just in terms of not only being a good character study into the character,
Hmm.
introducing character like Owen Wilson's character is great.
Yep.
And then the female Loki is awesome. And then also it just had it felt like the biggest scale they've had in Phase 4 so far. Like it felt like the most important for obvious reasons, but
It started off really strong in terms of like just that first episode, getting to watch the New York Loki, like the like world ruler Loki,
mm-hmm,
watch his life like unfold
mm-hmm.
on a projector was such a cool moment. I think that I forget his name. Was it Thomas Middleditch? That's not him, but Thomas
Tom
Hiddle.
Hiddleston, yeah.
Yeah, I think he did the best in this show. Like
Mm-hmm,
where in like the Avengers he was fine, and like a lot of the other ones he was always fine, like
mm-hmm.
as a side character. I think he really came into his own in this one
Oh
in
yeah,
this
for
movie.
sure.
Like it was pretty fantastic. I would put it at the end of B, maybe.
I was gonna say I would either do highest C or lowest B.
Let's do highest or lowest B.
Okay.
I kind of like that because I think it is. I think it's better than the Avengers.
Yeah.
Like I think it does a better job than the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
Just in general.
Right.
And
Ooh.
yeah.
Yeah, it's got a little cool stuff about it. It's got moments I really enjoy. I think just as a character, like it gives so much time to him specifically and who he is that that is just fascinating enough as a character study before you even get to everything else, you know?
Yep.
Um, I love I love all the variants you finally get to meet of Loki. Like I think is it Richard E. Grant is the actor who plays like old Loki, and he
Yeah.
summons like the like fake Asgard to distract. Like that is it.
Yeah.
One of my
Was
favorite MCU moments.
so
It's so cool. And like how they started. Like I love some of the random things they do with the show. Like they played off like fan theories where Loki made a copy of himself when Thanos snapped his neck, so he really didn't die. And then in Loki, the older Loki confirmed that that's how he survived in his universe. He did make a copy so realistic that anyone would believe it.
right.
Oh,
Yep.
it's so cool. Yeah. Anyways,
Um,
it's a cool show, and I think it just does so many things well.
yeah. Agreed. Next up is Black Widow, which is a movie that I did enjoy.
I enjoyed
Um,
it, but it's like where I enjoy it, it also has a lot of pointless. I didn't have any
it
expectations going in, but that made me enjoy it more.
it has the same not the same flavor, but a sim. I mean, Captain Marvel. I was kind of saying it. We're like, you don't need to watch this movie.
Right.
It does not give you anything like that. I would potentially put it at the top of D.
I was gonna say I would either put it behind Age of Ultron or before Age of Ultron.
Ooh, behind Age of Ultron.
Because I was
Yeah.
gonna say like I think Black Widow might be a neater movie, but it's not as interesting in any form as Age of
It
Ultron has ever been. You know?
hilariously enough, it's almost a really good parallel being under Doctor Strange
Yeah.
because it has that same, it doesn't necessarily have huge dips. It's like kind of a solid movie the entire way, but with the like drag down of not being important.
Right.
Like you don't need to
Exactly.
watch this movie. Like,
Yeah.
you do not need to watch this movie.
Right.
It's a it's a solid movie. It's a cool movie, good action. Florence Pugh's pretty solid in it as well, like the sister.
Hmm.
What's his name? Harbor.
David Harbour.
Yeah, David Harbour is solid. I think the family is like all really good.
Yeah.
The bad guy's awesome. The um, but it's yeah, it's like mildly forgettable, solid action scene. I feel like this is um the like poor man's Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Widow, where it's like,
Hmm.
okay, we have to make her badass. Like, so it's like that's not hard to do. Like, you can make Black Widow pretty fucking badass. So it's like it's got that to it, but it didn't have the importance that Winter Soldier had.
Right. No, I would totally agree. Yeah. No, I think that's a good spot for it. You haven't finished What If, have you?
I haven't, but I think I can still I can still do this because like I mean I was
I'm
probably
gonna put it in D tier.
this was one of the bigger letdowns because I was
100%.
really excited for like an all animated show because
Yeah.
it's like yeah like get away from it's comic books like give me something animated, give me something that's toony, like give me something
Hmm.
that has an artistic touch behind it as opposed to I mean not that the other ones don't but like an actual like
A
cartoonist
flair
like
to
artistic
it, yeah.
touch. Right, yeah, like that's what I want. I want to, and I feel like this was the best way to do something that different.
Hmm.
Um, and it kind of missed the mark a little bit. I
Yeah.
don't know what I was expecting, but I think it was very grandiose for the package that it was delivered in. You
Hmm.
know, like the ones that I was the most excited for, I was the most disappointed from. Like the
Yeah.
Doctor Strange episode, I was really pumped for because I was like, man, the trailers look awesome. And then I was just kind of like, that one was fine.
Yeah, that's kind
It
of like
all
most of
definitely
the
looks
episodes.
cool.
Yeah. No, I
Was
mean the
that
animation's great. It's just the writing
right?
I think was really poor.
Yeah.
Cuz
Yeah.
like I wanted to like this way more than I did. And I'm glad there's a second season only because I hope there's a different showrunner. Because I hope they would understand that it's like, okay, I think we have something here, but we just need a better direction. I
Yeah,
would put
I would
this
put it
at the
the end of
bottom of
D.
D.
Yeah, I would say the end of D or the beginning of E. Like, as in, I like it better than anything in an E, and like, it's probably not better than anything in D, but
Yeah.
like, maybe doesn't deserve to be an E. Like, just for the sake of like artistic integrity, it's like pretty dope.
Yeah. What's pretty crazy is like kind of just looking visually here. It's like phase three is probably the most consistently in the top. Phase one, oh, okay. You know, more now I'm looking more at it. I think phase one and four are kind of the most rocky, just in terms of being all up and down.
Um,
Yeah. All right. We have Shang-Chi next. So this is kind
ooh,
of this stock has been rising for me because I do
yeah.
really enjoy this. I would put this in B for sure.
Okay, no, I'm definitely down for that. I'd put it above.
I put it above Loki just because
I'd definitely put it above Loki. I'd probably even potentially put it above Black
I think
Panther.
I would too. I don't think I
Um,
would put it in front of Guardians
yeah.
quite, but
No, I think that's fair. Like I might, but I don't know if I would. So I'm totally cool with it being afterwards.
yeah,
Solid movie. I like we've kind of touched upon cut because it's the most recent or like one of the more recent ones. We've touched on it a little bit of how it's like really strong to start and really strong to finish, but the end kind of drags a little bit. But I do need to watch it for like a second and a half time
yeah.
because I think I've started it for a second time but didn't finish it.
Hmm.
um,
It's definitely got some
some
of
of
the
the
best fight scenes.
some of the best fight scenes. That's like, and this is coming from the guy that's been rating most of these based off of like
Yeah.
the fight scenes and stuff. So like that alone, I mean, I definitely put that above anything that happens in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 in terms of
Oh
fight
yeah.
scenes. I
No,
mean,
for
pretty much
sure.
anything in the B tier. It's like this has better fight scenes
Hmm.
than anything in there. But yeah, no, I think it's a solid. This is another one where it was like a really solid intro movie where it's
It is
like
the best new thing for sure.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Because it has its brush with the MCU, but it's not too close to it. But it's like
Hmm.
fantastical enough in its own right that it could just slide in pretty much anywhere. Which the
Dude, that's
spoiler
the
it, like does, but it's like,
right.
yeah, like it's
That's the best
they're
way to put it.
connecting.
Because
Yeah,
like him sliding in anywhere, it's like he can be a street level hero with the kung fu, or if there's more like Avengers level shit, then he can use the rings and shit. Like him using that, it was like, oh, this is kind of like the job application showing us, oh, so like when they fight big shit, this is what he does, you know? Like,
yeah, right. And like a solid support character, it really showed him being. It was fun because I liked that they didn't show him being like all powerful necessarily. His rise to power was really solid. Like
mm-hmm.
he already had all the moves. He gained the power throughout the movie, which was really cool, really satisfying for the end. Even when he had all the power, it's like you can really see how applicable the rings are in like a big battle,
Right.
especially at the beginning. I mean, you see that dude you see his dad use the rings in like some really cool ways, but you kind
Hmm.
of see that as like in terms of how you're filling out your fighting roster. He's like a really solid support character that can like, Spider-Man needs to jump off of something real quick and he just throws a ring out and
Right.
Spider-Man jumps off of it
Yep.
seamlessly. It's just like, ooh,
Oh
that's
yeah.
tasty.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's like for sure. Like out of Phase 4, this is probably the thing I'm most excited for moving forward.
Mhm.
Um. But yeah. Now, now we got. I don't think my brother's in chat anymore, but he. It's probably best he's not here for this massacre. But next we have the Eternals,
I
which
did rewatch it. I think we both rewatched it
I
recently.
and like it's not terrible, but it just takes a lot of big swings and doesn't make a lot of hits. You know.
I've said it many times now at this point, but now just so that it's recorded on tape. It's the best DC movie we've seen so
Yeah.
far.
Does that mean it goes in D tier? Because
I think it goes. Yeah,
I
no,
would put it
it
above
definitely.
What If for sure.
Yes, I agree with that.
Because at least it has a cohesive idea, cohesive
Cohesive.
idea
Yeah.
of what it wants to go for. You know what I mean? Like the whole movie, I could tell what it wanted to accomplish. It just didn't quite get there. You know?
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
I like all the characters, but where Shang-Chi, you could kind of see but you could see Shang-Chi jump in anywhere in the MCU and like fit in pretty well.
Hmm.
I don't want anybody from the Eternals to touch my fucking MCU,
Right.
and they didn't. That was the other thing that was really disappointing. Like I came out of that movie not. Oh, well, now I don't want them to. I don't know in what ways they will. I kind of have an idea of what ways they will, but it's like in the movie, you don't get the Eternals interacting with literally any MCU characters. The only thing that you get is they offhandedly make comments about the Avengers in
Right.
like different scenarios, which is like that is not the same. That's like,
Right.
that is not like introducing anything. So like even the after credit scenes do not introduce what we just watched in the Eternals to the current MCU. It was all new. Everything
Right.
that happened in that movie was all new, and it wasn't great. It was not a solid origin movie.
Right.
Um, it's too many characters. Weirdly enough, the best character was Angelina Jolie.
Yep.
Like,
Well, like it's literally if you took Guardians and just took all the fun out of it. Like
yeah,
that's it. It's like you had a brand new cast that you needed to establish it for. And whereas in Guardians had this like safety net of like it can kind of be a fun movie surrounding humanity. It's like this is literally a boring movie surrounding gods. Like
yeah, and I feel like each character wasn't a character. How do I want to put this? Each character wasn't a character with traits. Each character was the trait that they tried to make a character around.
yep,
Like,
100%.
and I feel like that's why it missed the mark so much
Right.
because it's like they made the black guy gay. They made the black guy gay later on in the movie where it's supposed to normalize, but it felt forced. It felt
Yeah.
forced because I didn't know this character at all. So it felt
Mhm.
really random when he just like, it's how or what happened between when you first landed on Earth and like now so that you're
Why
in
you
like
are you in love with Immortal, you know? Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
and like the deaf character, which is odd. That's like the other thing that's like it's not necessarily virtue signaling or anything like that, but it's like they had a really cool opportunity with the deaf character to kind of like get a little bit more in depth with it instead of just. It felt like they were just trying to normalize it without normalizing it,
Right.
like. They were trying to normalize certain things without actually normalizing it in like a productive way to the story.
Mhm.
Like, and it's not like I don't want I want all of those things that they had. I just it felt a lot more forced because of the way that they were telling the story.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely like Phase 4 is definitely the weirdest because, like, even looking at where we've placed all the Phase 4 stuff, regardless of what rank it's in the bottom of said rank, you know?
Right. And I think that's my tinfoil hat is that you can't have the tip of the you can't have like the peak without restarting. So
Yeah.
there is the tinfoil hat that I wear is that I think that they do mildly are like, I think that they're kind of putting out quote unquote bad content to start out with to like this is you the caboose is hooked to the chains and now you're like slowly going up like a slight incline to get to the
Right.
top
Yeah.
before they just let you go.
So we got two left here. So next one is Hawkeye, which I'm very high on as far as like being one of the better things they produced in Phase 4. I don't know if I want to put it above or below Loki because where I think Loki is more spectacle, Hawkeye is a better character. Like, I wouldn't even say it's a better character story, but it's like the narrative it's trying to tell is way more cohesive. And it's because it's not as cosmic, it's much more ground level, I get, but...
I think that Hawkeye is the best TV show that they've come out with so far.
Okay.
I wouldn't. So that being said, I wouldn't put it above Loki though.
Okay.
I don't think Loki is a better TV show. Loki is a better long form TV show.
Yeah.
Loki is like 3 movies that they put into one long TV show. Hawkeye felt like a TV show.
For sure.
That Hawkeye was the first one where I was like, this feels like a weekly TV show.
Yeah.
I am happy with the pacing of this show. I'm happy with like the direction that they went and everything. I mean, we've kind of touched on it before with the fact that it's not a galactic threat. We're back on the streets, and
God, and
that
I
feels,
missed it.
yeah, it feels very manageable and it feels very believable. So that when they did do the big things, I feel like it came out pretty recently, so I don't want to say too much necessarily. But when they did do the big reveals and like those big
we can
moments,
spoil shit. Who fucking cares?
okay, yeah, like
Yeah.
when they use the pin particles and shit is
Yeah.
like awesome. Like
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
those are like some of the best parts of the whole series, and
dude.
it's like that third episode is just incredible. And I mean the reintroduction of D'Onofrio, Vincent D'Onofrio is incredible. That was like also just top tier. I feel like the fight at the end was a little weird.
Yeah, same.
I think that they accurately showed Kingpin's strength. Like the fact that he ripped off a car door was like chef's kiss in terms of showing like kind of just how strong he can be. Is like Kingpin is just strong enough to rip off a car door and maybe lift a car.
Right.
Like that's like anything further than that and I'd be like, well,
Yeah.
that's like, so I'm glad that we got kind of like, and right off the bat too, that was like right when he was introduced, when he was like kind of getting pretty down and dirty with the fight scenes, is like him going hard. So that was pretty
Right.
awesome.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I really enjoy that show. I think Haley Steinfeld's great in that role. I think that show made me happy because the next generation already has a better Hawkeye and Black Widow than the first generation. So like,
Yep.
you know, like that's what that
100%.
show already.
Right, yeah.
That show showed me. It's like, okay, those two, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, Doctor. Okay, we got a cool Avengers team. Like this could be like a fun Avengers team. You know,
It's a good mix of cosmic versus street.
Right.
Like just in terms of abilities.
Yep, no, for sure. And then, you know, it was interesting that we talked about it's good to get back to street level because No Way Home is almost the most cosmic you can get with street level. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, 100%.
And like, unfortunately, as messy as this movie is, it's going in Stan Lee.
Oh, it's at the top. It goes in the front of Stanley. It does. I'm sorry, it does. This is the best movie that's come out. I like it doesn't matter. It's the best movie that's come out so far. Like it's incredible. I don't even know what to say.
I mean, it's the most recent like dope thing we've watched. I mean, it's like
there is like almost literally no negative thing that anybody could say about this movie that the like literal mountains of positive things
I know
about this movie doesn't just like completely erase.
Right.
The fact that this movie made me almost sob like 5 times is like holy shit, man.
Yeah.
Like almost to a fault. It was so fan servicey and like, and not in a bad way. I mean, I almost said I said to a fault, but like it like Oh god, it's just so fucking good. It has everything. It literally has everything.
Hmm.
It has everything to the point where it has stuff that it shouldn't have, and it has it like fucking
Right,
everything.
exactly. Because it even, like, not only do you have the other two Spider-Men in the movie for a long enough period of time where they have, like, individual character arcs, their character arcs don't overshadow Tom Holland's character arc, which is what everyone was worried about. So it's like, there were so many worries people had about this movie, and every time it got close, it just skirts past. It's like, nope, we're good. We're good. We're still going, baby.
Dude, I I don't know if you remember the car ride on the way there. And it was such a specific thing to bitch about, but I was bitching about the fact that like the other Spider-Men wouldn't just say with great power comes great responsibility. And then like in this movie, it just perfectly delivers the
Hmm.
line with great
That's
power.
something my
Like,
Uncle Ben said.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh my
Man,
God,
when the
dude.
two Spider-Men are like coming down the side, like to like go talk, fuck, man, yeah. I mean, we could literally talk infinitely about this movie. I
Yo,
where we had that comparison of Guardians versus Endgame, where it's the movie you can show to anybody versus the movie you can only show to MCU fans.
this is very much the movie you can only show to
This
like,
is the movie you can only show to Spider-Man fans, because not only do you
yeah.
potentially have to watch the entire MCU to like kind of appreciate Tom Holland's full arc, you
Mhm.
also have to watch Tobey Maguire's 3 movies and Andrew Garfield's 2 movies to really get every minor connection and detail that is put in this movie. And that amount of insanity is
Dude. That I can't. So essentially, it's S tier.
yeah.
If you don't put it at the front, then I'm leaving.
At the front,
Front.
you want it at the front.
I want it. You can
As
not put it at the front. You can not put it at the front, but then I'm out. I'm
as
out.
your friend, I will put it at the front as because I don't like any of these movies in the top tier. I could put at the front and be happy with it.
Because I agree in terms of like, I mean, this is a pretty general like ranking. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy is the movie that you could show to anybody, and just like if you don't like sci-fi, you should not be watching a Marvel movie.
Hmm. Right.
That's just like first and foremost. If you want a good Marvel movie, watch Guardians of the Galaxy. It's the best sci-fi movie that this entire genre has to offer.
Hmm.
Like that's just case in point. Spider-Man: No Way Home is the best movie to ever exist.
Yeah.
And that's it. Okay, so this is the list as it stands. Would you move anything? But is there anything? I kind of stopped us at one point to move stuff to E, but at this point, is there anything that B got pretty stacked? To my surprise, I was actually pretty surprised to how many things ended up going into B. But I think that was actually kind of like you were saying. That's just a byproduct of Phase 4 being kind of only that good. Like
Yep.
Phase 4 being like they're making a good product, but it's
Hmm.
not better than a lot of things they've put out.
Right, because looking at our list, the peak of Phase 1 is Iron Man at the very top of B. Um, the peak of Phase 2 is Guardians at the top. Peak of Phase 3 is Endgame and Infinity War. Phase 4 now, I guess No Way Home is at the very top, but it's like I don't even consider it almost Phase 4. Like it's just kind of its thing, you know.
I would almost even put Iron Man at the end of A.
Yeah.
I would,
I feel
because
like it's earned it.
if it's gonna be at the top of B for what it is,
Yeah.
then like it might as well be at the end of A.
No, I
Kind
can
of
agree
deal.
with that.
Because when I look at the groupings, I'm thinking of like each group kind of has its own flavor,
Hmm.
and so some of them, yeah, exactly, yeah. I was kind of saying that
I just
before,
moved
where
What
it's
If
like
down to E.
right, exactly. It's
Yeah.
it's like kind of has that same flavor of being bland and fine.
Hmm.
Like you don't have to watch it, which is kind of what D and E are. Is like you don't have to watch it
Man. If
necessarily.
I didn't make this Thor the Dark World tier, we would have a pretty like kind of like aesthetically pleasing kind of like flow
Yeah,
here.
it's a pretty good spread, honestly.
Hmm. No, I'm pretty satisfied with the list. I mean, like, I think at the very most, there's like one or two films you and I would maybe like. You would obviously have the first cap lower. I would have the first cap higher. I might bump Black Panther down a bit.
I wouldn't
Um,
have Infinity War as S.
oh man,
I would only
I
have those three
gotta.
as S. Oh, I mean, I'd put Homecoming up at S as well.
Oh wow, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Homecoming's almost there for me, but it's not quite.
it's not quite there. I
Yeah.
think it's because it's weirdly a introduction movie without being an introduction movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's an introduction movie without having to do a lot of the dumb stuff.
Right. No, for sure. Yeah. No, I'm pretty satisfied with our list. That's a solid list. We
Yeah.
got all this random shit coming out too, but yeah. I think on that note, we can we'll wrap this shit up. It's been 2.5 hours of talking about the fucking MCU. I think that's a good time to end it.
That's pretty good. That's
Yeah.
that's some good work done.
Yeah.
Good work done, my man.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks for everyone for watching us talk about nerdy shit. Have a good night.
Excelsior.